Good morning, good morning, good morning, good. Oh, there I am. Okay, so um, I'm 4 minutes early, but according to the YouTube analytics, there are two viewers waiting, and usually there aren't any more than two viewers waiting, because I'm just not that popular. So, because of that, there's no point waiting around. I might as well get right to it. Today is going to be an interesting excursion. I had noticed when I was looking at my task manager. Okay, so here's my task manager. Da 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 da. Sorry about that. There's the task manager. I'm looking at the task manager, and I'm seeing that this document is taking up like more than a gigabyte of memory. Like, really? It's a document, I mean, 50-page document. And so I close OpenOffice and I reopen OpenOffice and reload the document. And now it's taking up 100 megabytes of memory. Okay, so the memory footprint way, way, way lower after a reload. So clearly, OpenOffice has, memory leaks. Let's just say if it was a boat, it would sink. Okay, and that dovetails very nicely into the topic today, the topic of quality. And it's an important topic because it's a rather humbling topic, actually. I've ranted here plenty of times about software code quality, uh, purporting all the things that I think I know from my history of writing software, which is pretty extensive, um, but I've spoken and ranted about how relatively easy it is to write good quality code. Well, why do I mention that? Well, because as I'm going through I'm working on the on Salt and Light on the basically the story and characters video. So there's a pitch video which I kind of went over yesterday, then which I produced basically the day before, and then yesterday I was putting together this, which is all about the story and the characters, and and then there's going to be an additional video for Indiegogo consumption about the budget. So 2 days ago, I live streamed and talked at length about my thinking about what the budget situation needs to be, and it's all open to revision, but I think it's in the ballpark. So why do I mention code quality this morning? Well, actually, the parallels between um, a morning Amar, the parallels between a software development project and an animation project, not a little, you know, not a little test animation, not I'm gonna create 7 seconds of somebody going like this, in Blender or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about once you're doing a real project that's got some scope to it and requires a little bit of organization. Um, the similarities between software and animation are really, really, really strong. And so, a couple things come to mind directly relevant to this video, which is that number one, as I'm going through it, and I guess I'll play this little section here just to give a flavor of what this is. It's just kind of a low-key approach.
The story and characters.
So
the land of Newsy prospered under a good king, but the king and queen were overcome by a mysterious illness, and the government fell into disarray as the younger brother usurped the throne from the elder brother. To add insult to injury, the land of Newsy is blighted by a long-standing drought and famine. That's the backdrop to our story. Let's talk about characters. Melchizedek, we usually call him Mel. He's a pretty typical 15-year-old, adopted and raised by Asher.
So
we'll talk about Asher.
I'm kind of following what I would call the Robert Rodriguez school of behind the scenes, which is just just a low-key discussion, kind of on the clinical side about what is it we have here and how did we do it, kind of thing. And I like that approach because it's not overly self-celebratory, if you will, and the focus really is not on me; it's on the characters and the story and the stuff that really actually matters more to the audience, I'd say. Now as far as that goes, I think people are going to get more out of the basic pitch video than they are out of this one, and most of this information will be echoed in the Indiegogo campaign in text format with other graphics like probably character sheets and things like that, and then some of the better stills. But getting back to the issue of quality, as I'm going through this, one of my objectives, you see it right here. One of my objectives is to stop the minute there's something in this that says to me it's not quite where it needs to be. I want to stop and address it. This shot, here's a good example. This shot initially in the show, this shot was redone about a month ago, and it was just not up to scratch, and I redid it, and now I'm satisfied with it. Someone else might, once you get into things that are more per aesthetic choices about style or whatever, then of course someone else might say, well, that could be improved in this way or that way. But per the aesthetic targets that I've set for this show, it's where it needs to be. As I'm looking at it now, actually, I'm seeing where I could make a little tweak on his shoulders. His shoulders are a little out of balance. So there's things like that this is really a good example where 1 minute in Krita would fix that. So that is something that I'm sure I won't forget and needs to happen. Now going back here a little bit, these stills of the king and queen, I'm just kind of broadly not satisfied with. So that's something I want to look at. Okay, so there's a quality issue there where what you realize is that you have to be vigilant. There's kind of what I'm learning about myself and about my process is that there is a little voice inside you that kind of goes, hey, wait a second, pause, freeze, back up a bit. You're letting this go. And the reason, my vulnerability, yours might be different than mine, okay? But mine is to the questions I ask myself when I go to engage with a creative process is basically about worthiness. Will this turn out to have been wasted time? The reasons for that brain pathway are deep and far-reaching into my past, and probably not much of interest to my YouTube subscribers. But it's been very useful to grok out how that affects the way I think about what I'm doing. And to sum it up, the cure is always to have an absolutely uncompromising focus on quality, not time or speed. Now, I've talked in many videos going back for almost 2 years about trying to do this or that fast. The reality is that if you stay focused on quality, speed goes through the roof eventually, no matter what you do. Whereas if you focus on speed, what you wind up doing is getting really, well, probably you're going to get pretty fast at doing crappy work. So, okay, so now Amar's got a bunch of thoughts, so I'll just divert here for a moment. Hopefully the marketing plan based on the budget to really help push an eye on the campaign. The only comment on the campaign video, giving too much of the story versus the log line. The only comment on the campaign video, I think you're giving too much of the story versus the log line. Okay. Okay, so your final comment probably has a lot of merit. That's right. The people who are, if you're gonna hang in there with the pitch video for, okay, let me pause this. Since we only have a 1 second delay in the stream, I'll ask you this, Amar. When your comment there, so it would be your fourth comment where you say, I think you're giving too much of the story versus the log line. May I ask, are you referring to this video that we are looking at right now, or are you referring to the pitch video that I played yesterday? that's really important, um, because my suspicion is you're talking about what I played here. And if I'm right about that, so if you can just post an answer, if you're referring to this video that's on the timeline in front of us right now. If that's what you're referring to, where I was giving the backdrop about the land of Newsy and everything that's wrong, as the backdrop to the story, which took, I mean, it was less than 10 seconds, but I agree with you that it feels almost a little laborious. So I'm not getting an answer from Amar, so I don't know if he's... oh, you're talking about the pitch yesterday. Okay, that changes everything. I'll give that some consideration. All right, in fact, I'll actually make a note of that. So Amar is saying, can you do me a favor though? Yeah, because the reason I ask you that is that the video we're looking at right now is not the pitch video. This is a second video that's specifically about story and characters that basically no one would watch unless they had first watched the 3-minute pitch video. Okay, so you're having a comment here about the 3-minute pitch video. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm gonna play that. Okay, since we're having a discussion here, I'm gonna play that video, and you're gonna have to suffer through 3 minutes of that. Yeah. Okay. So you're not sure. Yeah, this level of detail right here, this business
The
about
land of
Newsy.
Newsy prospered under a good king, but the king and queen were overcome by a mysterious illness, and the government fell into disarray as the younger brother usurped the throne from the elder brother. To add insult to injury, the land of Newsy is blighted.
Okay, so there you have it. Is that what you were talking about? Because if that's what you're talking about, then I agree with you if this was the pitch video, but it's not. This is the story and characters video that no one would ever watch unless they had first watched the pitch video. So what I was saying is, why don't I go ahead and let everyone suffer through 3 minutes of the pitch video, so that if anybody has an opinion about that, I'm all ears. I'm in an editing mode right now, and vis-a-vis this discussion about quality, I'll wrap that discussion up right now before I play the pitch video in this way. When the very first shot that I went to, which was actually in the intro segment here, where that right there, when I looked at this, I said, okay, I want to go into Tahoma and tweak a couple things. Consider the possibility of making his smile bigger. Kind of more like you've seen with Sokka in a couple shots in Avatar, where Sokka's got this real sort of shit-faced grin going on. When I jump into Tahoma, I discovered that they like to work at broadcast HD. Okay, so this speaks back to the thing about software quality. The reality is that early in the process, especially when you're finding your way, there are a lot of things that are disorganized. Okay? And so again, vis-a-vis my criticism of software developers who I accuse of writing bad code, if I don't stop everything, okay, I don't have to go through and exhaustively look at every shot in the show and try to bring every bit of the metadata up to date. But what I do have to do is, if I have a specific shot that I need to go back to and make some tweaks, at that point I have to attend to making sure that it conforms to the standards of the project. If I don't, then I'm no better than, the say Tahoma developers who have code with bugs in it. And I have no room to criticize the software development process if I'm not giving the same attention to quality to the animation process. Because frankly, I mean, I've done a lot of both, and they're really, really, really similar. The thing you find with software and animation that's the same is you have a procedural pipeline where what you did 3 steps back greatly impacts what you see 3 steps forward. So for example, you might have an image sequence like this that's somewhere on the hard drive, hopefully in the right folder, but in fact it might be in the wrong folder and needs to be moved. And if it gets moved, then I have to go into Tahoma and repoint it to the right location. right? And then this gets rendered. It goes into Vegas for editing as an image sequence. So you get this procedural workflow where everything builds on what came before. If you chimp one step, everything suffers downstream, mainly because you can't ever keep track of what you did. You can't remember it, right? So you have to have sort of standards of quality and process. So when I talk about quality, I'm talking about the quality of the work itself, and I'm also talking about the quality of the organizational process. I would say that I'm probably 80% organized. I'm pretty strong on the organizational side of things, but absolutely see all kinds of things here and there that need to be attended to. So anyway, okay, so let's run the pitch video, because I really would actually like to see if Amar's assessment is the same. Okay, so here, I'm looking at this. I think to upsell it, you can do your elevator pitch at the beginning and the end. Then the meat of the video is to show off the character design with a little animation. Let me see here. Yesterday you had only audio. Yeah, at the very end, you probably weren't there, but at the very end I played the whole thing with video. To upsell it, you can do your elevator pitch at the beginning and end. Then the meat of the video is to show off the character design with a little animation. And that's probably a judgment. From your perspective, I'll have to think about, is that is what turns on Amar versus what turns on the average person that would want to watch a show like this, because I don't know if those are the same. One of the key things I've had to keep in mind, by the way, is that, and this is really, really an important thing that occurred to me about 4 or 5 days ago, is that there is a real difference between you, Amar, and Yvette, and Darren, if he's around. There's a really big difference between my followers or my fans or my friends and my audience. My audience for this show is enormously larger and has different priorities than the people that follow me on YouTube, because the people that follow me on YouTube are turned on by animation and the process and all that, and that's basically not what people that are going to support this thing are about. Probably. I mean, let me say this: the people that are like us here will want to support this, but I would guess that most of the support will not come from those people. Now, it could be actually that in terms of people's level of giving, it basically grokking out what is more likely to be effective. I think those tools are more relevant to Indiegogo's search analytics than they are to informing your creative process as far as what your pitch video looks like. You're not really doing an A/B test. Basically, the best tool I have for judging the quality of my presentation would be just my friends and friends and family and people that I can show, right? So I'll go ahead and run the pitch video. Hopefully it'll play back correctly. Give me half a second on the other screen to pull it up. Anime, salt and light, render. Okay, so this should be it, and if it starts prematurely, I'll stop it and restart it cleanly. Okay, so here's...
My name is Asher. They call me a wise or holy man. I don't know about all that. The wisest thing I ever did was take in a young boy and raise him as my own. That young man turned out to be far more important than I could ever have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
If you're like me, you appreciate a cartoon that combines an epic quest, political intrigue, comedy, adventure, and engaging characters. Characters who have to learn to live and work together despite their differences. I decided to create a cartoon like that. It's called Salt and Light. My name is David Matthew Weiss, aka Blended Planet, the creator of Salt and Light, which is a show I conceptualized in 2010, and it sat on the shelf for 10 years while I was making live-action made-for-TV movies. As a filmmaker, I had tiny budgets, so I learned how to get production value on the screen economically. I also did a lot of it myself, writing the screenplays, directing, editing, even special effects and music.
I'm actually gonna, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait for OBS to reconnect. And so you guys are getting a delay. There's about a 5-second delay in the line now, and I'm gonna go ahead and continue it now that I've got a connection here. So sorry about the pause there.
About 3 young people and a monkey caught up in a situation much bigger than themselves. It's stylistically similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender. So creating a cartoon doesn't really require dozens of people and millions of dollars.
Good news, everyone!
It turns out that 30 seconds of finished animation per day creates a whole 24-minute episode in, 48 days.
So it should take about 3 years of quarterly releases to complete 12 episodes.
But your help could really accelerate the process.
The pipeline is already working. Episode number 1 is animated and it's ready for voices, sound effects, and music. Episode 2 is about 1/3 animated and it's moving forward every day.
I'm committed to 2 episodes for sure, followed by an ongoing effort to set up distribution and further funding to complete the entire series over 3 years.
If we get enough support, I'd like to expand the team a bit and move toward being able to release monthly episodes instead of quarterly.
You're going to be helping create a very cool show and ultimately an entire series.
I'm David Matthew Weiss, aka Blended Planet, and I want to thank you in advance for your support.
Okay, so to answer Chris's question, the short answer is I'm not sure. I mean, the usual suspects like, Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. But yeah, the short answer is I'm not 100% sure. So my question to you guys is, let me look at Amar's comments. People tend to be into eye candy with a great story that encourages them to continue on to just support the campaign, or then read further and support the campaign based on how they want to interact with your product. Okay, some of this seems like it can be other embedded videos or text included in the body of the page, but you could leave it as it is. This is okay. All right. So yeah, so the question for me would be, if you're gonna give $20 to a campaign like that, why? What is it that is cool about it? What is it about it that turns you on, that makes you want to support it? Golden Slime, I would, if I had to put a label on it, I would call it a westernized anime. I would call it, or an Americanized anime. That's why I say it's kind of similar stylistically to Avatar, which is basically a westernized anime. It's, most people would probably call it an anime, I think. I tend to call it a cartoon. I have debated with myself over whether that terminology makes a difference, and whether it's important that I call it an anime. I think the later part gave more to me to what you want in your goals. Yeah, I know exactly. An anime is a cartoon, of course. Okay, the later part gave more to me to what you want in your goals. So you're saying that me on screen, for example, talking about the business of it, if you will, was more meaningful to you, Amar? Is that what you're saying? And maybe in the end, put a scene with mystery. Huh. Let me make a couple notes here. So if you can confirm that I'm understanding your comment correctly, that would be helpful, Amar. It sounds like what you're saying is that the businessy approach that appears, and by the way, I did that specifically because I'll tell you what my thought was, and I don't want to influence your guys' opinions by mine, okay? Yeah, okay, if it's a style, then it's an anime. I would say that's a pretty safe statement. So my thinking about the pitch video was that it was initially shot entirely on camera with me, with the idea that we would be cutting to the show and, you know, speed draws and all that kind of stuff here and there and everywhere around something that was basically me talking to the camera. When I looked at that footage, I didn't like it. Not because I'm not comfortable on camera, obviously. I just didn't. I felt like the whole thing was too used car salesman pitchy, and the stuff that I put in the video that's me on camera, because that's, it's weird because it's like, is that me or is that not me? The fact is, it kind of is me. I mean, I've made my living doing sales on the phone for 30 years, so that's kind of, you know, I am a salesman, but it's not what turns me on. You know, this is why I mentioned when I looked at the Robert Rodriguez director's commentary components of, I think it was Spy Kids. It was probably Spy Kids 3D. I always liked Robert because, like me, he does everything. I mean, he's written music for his own movies, and he does all the editing, and he's, you know, he's really a one-man show to a degree. You know, not really, but certainly when he started, he was. And I was the same way, you know, and I always liked his kind of low-key approach. The low-key approach that, as I said earlier today, is not quite so self-celebratory, but really is focused on the product, not the person, right? I don't know if that's the right approach. You know, to a degree, you know, I just don't see myself as that great of a product, you know. I think the show's a lot better product than I am. So let me just go here. Chris has got some thoughts here. For me, anime, okay. Some people get angry, so play it safe. Oh, are you saying that? Okay. I think what Chris is saying is that, what's the term? Some people are kind of anal about what exactly is anime, and if you're calling your thing an anime, especially if you're not Japanese, you know, you don't really have any right to call it an anime, right? You know, this kind of thing. So some people kind of have their nose stuck up in the air about what is or isn't anime. So I think what Chris is saying is that in terms of terminology, it's safer to do what I'm doing, which is to call it a cartoon. I think that's what you meant, Chris. So that was getting to the point of what you're asking for the people that will support the campaign. A little animation that highlights the animation. You do get personal information that can be added to your first paragraph of the page. Okay, let's go there a little bit. Because I always have to interpret a little bit what people mean with their comments, but I think if I'm understanding you, let me just pull up the pitch video edit here, and I'm gonna have to browse. Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I'm understanding you. Okay, first of all, Amar, I made a calculated decision. You guys can disagree again, and please don't hesitate to disagree. You know, don't defer to my opinion as if I know what I'm doing. You know, I'm just making this up as I go along. So my calculated decision was that the best selling point from a crowdfunding standpoint is the intro to the show, because it's cool, and you're talking about 30 seconds, or actually you're talking about 1 minute, that really sells the fact that there's been a lot that's been accomplished. You're not going to contribute to something that's not going to be completed, you know, which happens all the time. You know, I really kind of made that calculated decision because basically whoever's there will not have ever seen this other than in the context of the pitch video. Okay, so that's my first assumption. So you're sort of like, let's wow people with the intro so they have a really strong sense of what we're talking about here. Okay, that was my mindset. And then I amended that by adding this verbiage where
If you're like me, you appreciate a cartoon that combines an epic quest.
it's all that stuff about if you love a cartoon, if you love a great cartoon, hey, guess what? So do I, and so I decided to make one. That's pretty much what that's all about. Okay, so Amar says you do give personal information that could be added to your first paragraph of the page. Oh, you're talking about on the Indiegogo page. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything in any of the 3 videos, which is this is the pitch video, then you've got the story and characters, and then you've got the budget, which is going to be a much more concise breakdown of the budget situation, like I went through yesterday. That'll actually be in a spreadsheet and kind of look somewhat professional, right? And I have a template for that because I did a $100,000 budget for Healed by Grace 2 actually before I produced it. This is a funny story actually. You guys will find tragic actually. What happened was the distributor wanted to front me to $100,000 to create the sequel to the horse movie because they had made so much money on the first one. At this point they've made about $400,000 on my first horse movie. And so he said, just find a way to make all the numbers work so that the budget comes out to $100,000, since that's what we want to give you. And the reason they wanted to give me that is so I got that money up front, and then they would own the property, and they would make all the money from it going forward. That was their whole mindset. For me, $100,000 at that point was meaningful, so it's like, yeah, let's do that. And what actually happened was I did the whole budget, got the spreadsheet to them. They're like, yep, it looks good. This is great. We're going to cut you a check in 2 weeks. And literally that week, Family Christian Stores declared bankruptcy. And as that retail outlet was a huge part of their revenue model at that time. This is now it's about 6 years ago. And when they went bankrupt, all of a sudden their whole model was upended overnight. The whole industry just collapsed when all the major sort of like Christian bookstore chains all went bankrupt within a very short period of time. It was like the strip malls. And so they had to come back to me and say, you know what, we hate to tell you this, but our bean counters, our accounting guys, want to wait. They want to hold off because of this bankruptcy. We're feeling a little uncomfortable now about so I mean, we were literally days from a $100,000 check. Suffice to say the following. A, the check didn't happen. B, I didn't make anywhere near $100,000 from the movie. It's done okay in terms of like a monthly royalty picture, but it'll take to make $100,000 from that movie. You'll probably take at least another, probably 6 or 8 years. The good news is that the streaming media platforms they've really found their way and changed their business model so that what destroyed the industry about 6 years ago really started to recover about 2 years ago. So anyway, the 3 minutes is fine. Okay. You could still sell the same idea in half the time or a minute. Well, yeah, but the initial concept was stretched out to like 5 or 6 minutes, and Indiegogo was very clear in their guidelines that if you want to get the best results come from a 2 to 3 minute video. Now, if I was going to do that, frankly, what I'd do is I would take this whole first minute, and instead of running the entire intro to the show, I would find a way to condense that down. I mean, and then just jump right into the business of it, because then
My
you're
name is
starting
David
here.
Matthew Weiss, aka BlendedPlanet.
You could certainly have a 10-second. You could condense all this into a pretty powerful 10 seconds. Take only the very best shots from the intro, and cut this down to I love a great cartoon. If you do too, join me, because I decided to make one. Now, you guys can tell me your opinion. Do you think that'd be more effective? Do you think that having one entire minute devoted to playing the intro of the show is actually working against me? Because I don't care. I couldn't possibly care less what this winds up looking like, as long as it's effective. You know, that's all I care about, because, and I say that for the best of reasons. I think that there are people like myself out there who really would be rooting for a guy. Okay, let's put it this way: if any of the guys out there that are doing animation that's, you know, like pretty good character animation type stuff. So you're talking about Panico, you're talking about Ed Tadeo's doing good stuff with Krita. You're talking about probably Olaf Storm, who's like a TV paint guy. Even AMB Animation from his channel. I still would love to see him create a complete property, whether it's a movie or a show, and be successful. So, okay. Amar, I don't remember. I only started a campaign and never went through it. I've just been following and checking them out more than. Well, the thing about you, Amar, is you've got a pretty exhaustive body of knowledge. So I appreciate your comments. You know, I always reserve the responsibility of making the final decision, but I definitely always appreciate the input. Only because I don't have any finished products to pitch for crowdfunding yet. Right. Well, guess what? Neither do I. Right? If I was gonna crowdfund, if I was gonna crowdfund anything else, it would be one of three things. It would be the Futurama fan episode, because that would get a lot of contributions, but I don't know if it would create legal jeopardy for me and Darren or whoever else is involved in with Fox, because Fox owns that property. So I'd either do that, or I would do a browser-based implementation. I would basically duplicate probably either PAP or Pencil 2D, like a simpler animation program. I would completely re-implement as a browser-based application using the HTML canvas. I think that would be a very, very cool product that where everyone could actually use this software right in the browser. And number 3 would be something I call the Vishnu light, which is essentially a hardware device that gives you a DMT-like ayahuasca type experience with flashing lights, which actually does work pretty well. And there's a guy out there who's got something like that he's charging like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for. It's a freaking, okay, I kid you not. What this does is it flashes lights at a certain frequency, and if you close your eyes and the light is reasonably bright, what happens is you start to see these swirling patterns of color. And people will tell you that if they've gotten high on ayahuasca, you know, which unlocks DMT and gives you DMT in your brain, you know, and kind of like big spiritual awakening kind of thing, right? It turns out that this light effect is very, very similar to the effect you get from taking DMT. Okay, so this guy's got this product that he's charging $6,000-$7,000 for, and I looked at the product and I go, yeah, so thank you, Chris, for your comment. I'm sure it is dangerous. Now, you know, it's one of those things where, well, I'll come back to that. But the funny thing about this light is I looked at the product and I'm going, I think from what I can see here, what this guy did was he took a $35 Raspberry Pi, did a little programming, and plugged it into a $2 LED. And I did some research and I found out that was exactly what he did. He's got like $50 into this thing that he's charging like $8,000 for. All because of the idea of it. You know, that it, you know, at certain frequencies it's going to make you more relaxed or more creative. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. Because I have a $100 device that is plugged into, you know, LEDs or PEMF devices or whatever, that where I've done it. I've matched the frequencies, and yeah, it works. It's like a DMT trip. I haven't done DMT, but you definitely see all kinds of swirling lights and geometric patterns, and it's pretty cool if you're into that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm probably boring everybody because I've got 4 concurrent viewers now. So it's like, yeah, Dave, you're boring the whole world. Okay, so on balance, if no one else has a strong opinion, I'm going to assume that the pitch video is okay at this point. I think it would be worth entertaining the idea of a shortened version where the first minute is chopped down to like 10 to 20 seconds. I think that would be interesting to look at, and I may do that. So I'm going to just say possibly chop the pitch to 2 minutes plus, let's say, instead of 3 minutes. But, you know, again, I took a very calculated gamble on the idea that the most compelling thing for the average person is to see the intro of the show, because there's so much of the show that's packed into it, and you can see that this is kind of a cool production. And by the way, in that first minute, you're going to know whether this show is your cup of tea or not. You know, and if someone made the decision whether to watch the rest of the pitch video based on whether they think the show is cool, I mean, to me, that's pretty legit, you know. If you think the show is stupid, if I saw a pitch for a show that was like Bob's Burgers, I would tune out immediately, because that's not a funny, well, my opinion is, it's not a funny show. There's a lot of shows like this right now that they're trying to be the next Family Guy, and the writing sucks. You know, the writing just sucks. It's just not, you sit through a whole episode and you never even laugh, you know. It's amusing, but it's not funny, you know, and there's a big difference between amusing and funny. And so anyway, okay, so anyway, Chris, thank you, by the way, for your comment. I used to think that David X. Cohen was the guy to contact about that, or obviously Matt Groening. And then I came to realize that actually Fox owns it, and if I didn't know Disney had bought Fox, actually. I didn't realize that. So Disney's a juggernaut. But I guess that explains why the Simpsons movie is on Disney Plus. So probably Disney would shut me down in a hurry. I mean, I'm guessing this: if there probably is a way to do the Futurama thing based completely on just a fan effort through a YouTube channel. So any money you're going to make from it would just basically be from having a really big YouTube audience, as opposed to asking people to pay you to do something. I think under those auspices, probably Disney/Fox would kind of look the other way and go, you know, some idiot on YouTube's making a fan movie or fan show. Who cares, you know? And it's highly debatable whether an accurate drawing of Professor Farnsworth, for example, would trigger a copyright claim, as opposed to an actual, you know, actual footage from one of the, you know, bona fide shows. I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, so anyway, where we're at here again is we're talking quality, and that means that this is what we need to deal with right now, which is I went into Tahoma and I set up my render settings, and that raised another question, which is to actually make sure, since this is going back quite some time, to make sure that the render settings are correct to where the output is actually rendered. And if it's not, I either need to change the location or change the parameters or have some way to document the exception. This is shot number 778, and so we're over here on, I'm just double checking the output. So the, you know, where we're going from here is going to be pretty clinical today, because, okay, it is in the rendered folder. So cool. So there it is. That's good. I got to remember to do my transition. And okay, as long as you're not making money and it's either a parody or paying homage, it should be like when someone who does covers of other people's songs. I don't know about that. Covers of songs are an interesting case because there is a legal mechanism in place to compensate the original copyright holder, or really it would be the artist or the publisher. Okay, so we ran into that very situation actually at one point. Let me see if I can give you the let me see if I can find the example I'm talking about, because you guys might actually find this a little bit interesting. Maybe not. So I'm going to go back into my archives, and I'm opening up my music archive. And what was it? The Hero Takes a Fall by the Bangles. The Hero Takes a Fall by the Bangles. Okay, so yeah, this is a concrete example of what I'm talking about. Let me see here. Give me half a second. People, be patient. Be patient with me, and I will show you what I'm talking about. Yep, there she is. Okay. Yep, right here. Okay, so I'll pull this down onto the screen. Okay, so here we have an album called Make Believe from 2007. This is all music that that I either wrote and produced, played all the instruments, and my daughter's the singer. But this song right here is a song by the Bangles called Hero Takes a Fall. So I'm going to play that, and just because it's fun to play. But the basic story is that there, as I say to Amar, there's a process in place whereby I was able to determine. I think Susanna Hoffs is the one who actually owns the publishing on that song, and when I did the remake of it, I had to allocate 50% of royalties to Susanna Hoffs. So I like our version better, actually. I love the solo idea. Very frenetic.
Emotion is a virtue. For you it is the one fatal flaw. Sitting on your throne and drinking, thinking she'll return your call. Every story's got an ending. Look out, here it comes, and I won't feel bad at all. When the hero takes a fall, the hero takes a fall.
well done. Yep, that's my girl. She can sing. She has a unique voice. She doesn't have a generic voice. Some girls have a voice that is what I would call generic. Her voice is a more of a distinct sound. For a lot of things, a generic voice is better, especially radio jingles. But, you know, she's got a unique sound. It suits what she does now. She's got this business where she's a party princess and she sings, you know, like, I suppose Disney type songs, you know, to little girls that are having a birthday or whatever. She's actually, with COVID-19, she's been doing that remotely. Let me see here. We've got, okay, so this shot is actually at 24 frames a second, so. Okay, so we didn't even see the tween go by because it is 24 frames a second. Let's jump that to 3 frames and see what we get. Okay, and I guess in this one case we'll make an exception and okay, not bad, not bad, not bad. Alright, file, save all. So, you know, the irony, actually, now that I think about it, is playing that song, because it is on, like, Spotify and all the rest, it could be that playing that song will get me a copyright strike on, because of, you know, because I'm playing music off of YouTube Music in this case. Except it's my music. But it wouldn't shock me if YouTube gave me a copyright flag because of that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I didn't even consider that before I played it. Okay, so now what I want to ask myself, since we're here and this is what we're doing, actually let's just do this. Let's hit Control-Shift-R and render that baby out and see if everything propagates downstream correctly. And in the meantime, what else could we play? I Disappear is a fun song that usually gets to me a bit. It's oh, come on now. Where's our background? It appears to me that I goofed. Okay, well, we can still check to see if it propagated properly. So let's go to the pitch, and I don't have the actual intro open in Vegas, so what I need to do is look at the story and characters video. Okay, so here, okay, so I would assume this is well, we need to look at it. So let's edit this in Vegas. Fortunately, Vegas gives us nested projects. So this is the intro, and it's actually not the rendered version of the intro that's in the pitch video. It's actually the edit itself. It nests them. So what I'm looking at is this. Where is it? Ah, here we go. Okay, so this is 778 properties. Oh, I'll bet you this is from the edited. Nope. 77. Oh, they're JPEGs. Oh, come on. Come on. Who knew? Okay, so here's what we'll do. Let's go back here and let's do a couple things. First of all, let's turn on the background. Let's go to our render settings and let's kind of switch it to JPEG. You know, if you're at 90% quality, JPEG's fine for your final output. So the other thing I'm thinking about is actually scaling the whole shot. Don't know if there's a super good way to do that here without, you know, jumping through more hoops than I necessarily want to jump through, but let's just see. If we go to our scene settings, because the problem is, I don't mind the 24 frames a second, but the problem is, if we change our camera settings to broadcast HD, I expect that's actually going to botch our renders. It's not gonna scale. Okay, so, but I think we can fix that by changing our camera size, right? Am I right? I think so. Let's change our output settings to, okay, and that's the level settings. Okay, so now that's interesting. So if the level settings full HD, but the output settings broadcast HD, what happens? What do you actually get as output? Let's find out. I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-R and go for it. Go for it. Unmitigated rigor. Okay, this time we got a background. And if we go back to our image browser, what we see, here's the JPEGs. Yep, here's all the pings. So let's take these pings and kill them. We're not going to be using those babies. Kill them all. Kill them. Okay, and it looks like... Okay, it looks to me, unless... Let's refresh. Yep. So it looks to me like the camera settings take precedence. The camera settings override. So if your camera settings are full broadcast or full HD, then broadcast HD as a scene setting does not matter. So there's a fix for that. The fix is we're going to go to our output settings. We're going to change this back to broadcast HD. And then what I'm going to simply do is on frame 1, I'm going to move my camera. Okay, position is what we want, so we hit Control, and we're just gonna crop like that. That's it. Now everything should be back to normal, and now we've got the smiley face in there the way we wanted. Now the other question that needs to be asked, I'm gonna save everything and re-render it right now just to get that out of the way. Even though I'll probably be doing it again, so I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-R. The question is one of characterization, basically. We've got a lot of instances of Vegas open here. Let's go to let's close intro titles. Well, actually, no, let's not. Yep, look, it worked. It worked. Everything propagated upstream. That's the bigger mouth. Excellent. Okay. So now the fact that he has the bigger mouth, in a sense, excuses to a small degree the idea that he might be a little off character. I guess I would just, I'll throw this out there. If anyone has an opinion, it seems to me that there is a little bit of, variation in okay, I'll just tell you how I think about this. When I sit and watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, I can tell when they switched between studios, okay? Because the characters are actually drawn in several very different ways throughout the show, and you get smatterings of the different styles in different places. It just depends. And okay, so there's thought number one, is that a major successful show has a fairly wide variation in characterization. Okay, so it's not necessarily a huge sin. Okay, so that's thought number one. Thought number two is, in the world of anime, you have a lot of idioms like this, big stupid grin kind of thing. You have a lot of idioms that are deliberately taking the characters way, 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 way off in a different direction, like chibi or whatever, and so from that standpoint, my sense is that there's not enough variation in characterization throughout here, generally, for it to be a big deal. So if you're picky, you say, well, there's a little bit of a difference between this Mel and this Mel. It's really got to do with his hair. and maybe his chin's a little bit long, but I'm frankly a bit conflicted on whether to, how anal do I want to be? If I was going to fix this shot, I probably would be less concerned about the hair as I am about moving his mouth down just a little bit on his face. Things like that. So this is kind of what I'm looking at today. His hair here looks almost correct, but I tell you, actually, I can see right now what the main problem is. The main problem is he doesn't have any hair behind his ears. His hair is actually supposed to come down like this, so we're going to definitely fix that. We are going to fix that. And by the way, let me see here. Probably the way to fix it is going to have to be on another layer. Yeah, I'm going to put another layer behind, and then let me see if his head ever changes position. I don't think it does in this shot. Okay, it doesn't. So to be fair, though, we have several shots in the show that basically reused this pose. So this is going to have to be fixed multiple times. Therefore, the non-stupid way to fix it would be to amend these pings. And if I want to do that safely, generally doing it in Tahoma is not going to be my preferred method. I would rather go into the original art and fix it probably in Krita. So let's go in that direction and rock and roll here. So I'm going to open up Krita. And so here, I'm guessing, if we transition back over here, I'm guessing that probably 778 contains, there's the merged image, yep, there's the data. So this was originally done as an aura file. And what we want to do is save each of these with a modification to his hair. Okay, no big deal. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, not to have an inordinate focus on speed, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. It's going to be a broadcast HD template. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these 4 layers and drag them in and have Krita treat them as inserting many layers. Okay, so now we've got all these layers. And what we will do is we'll group them, and then ultimately we will convert this to an animated layer. Now there is a bit of a problem in that the scale is wrong. Okay, so we'll just use a transform mask. Okay, and we'll just resize the whole layer and see if it causes. Okay, it looks like it's probably going to cause some issues because Krita's a little bit stupid about these sorts of things. So there's a couple ways we can approach that. One would be to go into the background and oh, okay, yeah, I see what's going on here. Okay, it's unfortunate, but this is something I would tell anyone who's going to be experimenting with Krita, especially if you're experimenting with different versions, which I do from time to time. Be aware that all you have to do is run the older version of Krita one time, like open it and then close it again, and all of your hotkeys, all of your brush bins, basically all of your personal data about your configuration will be destroyed. Just trust me on this. It will be absolutely destroyed. And it'll be destroyed quickly and irrevocably, and you'll have to go in and refix it. So my hotkey to isolate active layer is now destroyed. But I'm not complaining too much because I expected that. Actually, I fully expected Krita to do that and made the calculated decision that it was worth it. So I have no hotkey for that right now, so we're going to do that right now. Here's how you do it. Now we'll use this as a learning experience. Configure Krita, keyboard, shortcuts, isolate, active layer, which should be the tilde key. Boom. And now when I hit the tilde key, it turns that off and on. So no big deal. All right, so now what that did for me is by moving this into the group, the transform mask doesn't, well, we'll see if this works, but let me see what this does to each of these layers. It's still probably going to crop them. Yeah, forget it. This isn't worth trying to do. I'm going to stop, resize the canvas. Just resize the canvas back up to full HD. That's a little 1080. Wait, 1920 by 1080. Little annoying, little annoying. Okay, so now yeah, these all need to be moved, so we might as well just redrag them in. Silly, silly, silly. We're looking at fast stone. Thank you, Darren. Jeez. Okay, I'm not going to switch screens today again, no matter what. I will not switch screens. I will only drag other screens in, because it's happened too many times over the months where I inadvertently, well, do what I just did and leave everyone looking at the wrong screen. It's absolutely absurd. Okay, so now we've inserted many layers. These layers are going to be dragged in here. We'll have to make sure ultimately that the ordering of those layers is correct, so that when we re-render them, they're saved to the right file names, and we don't wind up breaking things in Tahoma. But okay, so what are we trying to do here? We're gonna go. I would say let's just hit the G key, and then probably something like that looks pretty good. Little bit more volume there. Okay, now we see here that we have a gradient, so that's a little problematic. Little problematic, not hugely problematic, but it's definitely a thing. So that looks pretty good, and now that will reside behind all the other images. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually put a paint layer over top as well. Since we're having to kind of babysit the process here a bit, I'm going to just basically take a brush and just paint out this noisy ickiness. Does the outline matter? Not really quite sure. Probably not, but we'll put it in there just for completeness. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go to my pencil, and basically I want a color that's pretty much that, and we're going to zoom way in here. We'll put this on top. I guess while we're here, we'll sort of tighten that up a little bit. Now, I'm not quite as, I may eat my words, but I'm not quite as worried about saving constantly when I'm working on something that's just a static image with layers. Now, layer operations themselves, like adding a new layer, things like that, certainly cutting and pasting layers, are extremely crash prone. They're actually the main source of crashes in the most recent versions of Krita I've found. Other people's mileage may vary, but okay, so I'm going to save this. Let's save this as, we're going to be in scenes 778. Let's see. I guess I'll do this. I'll just resave the storyboard image, and then it also gets saved as a Krita file. That's consistent with past practice. So we've got, I'm looking at the layers. He's got open eyes, no eyebrows, kind of a squint, and then closed eyes. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's hit the tilde key. Yeah, these layers are either in the right order or they're precisely in the wrong order. They're either completely reversed or they're correct, and I actually don't know. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, well, it doesn't really matter too much because we can always mirror the frame. So let's just take this layer and we're going to convert a group to an animated layer. Boom. Okay, so now, according to... Now that's weird because the result is actually... No, I guess that's correct. A little dyslexia moment. That is actually correct. So, file save. And, hey, there goes Val. How you doing, baby? My beautiful woman. I think I am going to go have my morning conference with Valerie, and then when I come back, which is going to be about, I don't know, 3 minutes, I need to get some more water. When I come back, we'll get this rendered out, cut it into the show, and see if everything propagates properly. Now, the reason we're not seeing the back of his hair is because I've got this group layer soloed. So that's it. Generally, people don't bail out too much on me when I take a 3 to 5 minute break. So stick around, folks. We're just going to crank away on this stuff. And I would say, you know what, I won't even bore you guys with the pitch video. You guys go take a bathroom break or whatever, and we'll all come back together in a few minutes. 3 to 5. And we still have 7 viewers. It never ceases to amaze me that people don't bail when I take a break. I don't know why. Maybe that shouldn't amaze me, but it does. Okay, so now what we gotta do, I really wish that Krita remembered its render settings, but it doesn't, so that's alright. We've already saved our work, so what I need to do is 60? No. Okay, again, quick change. This is a great example. Up here on my other screen, I need to set the number of frames for this particular shot to 4. The frame rate doesn't matter because it's an image sequence. So, and then let's immediately resave our work and hit Control R. So now this is going to actually create an extra frame. We're going 0 through 4, so the last frame is actually 3. If I'm going to be meticulous about it, I would make another change. So I'm going to try to remember that to change the animation number before I leave this Krita shot. But we need to definitely change this to number scene 778. And the actual sequence numbering is a little different. It's layer 1. Okay. And if we hit refresh on okay, I actually made a mistake. That put it in the render folder, and actually it needs to go in the data folder. So my mistake. That doesn't really matter because it's going to get re-rendered out of Tahoma anyway. So let's fix that. The location is in fact, well, this is exactly what I was talking about when I started today. This is where I'm really trying to be attentive to quality. Okay, so okay. Yet another mistake. There just doesn't seem to be any limit to the number of mistakes I'm making so far. In my render, I do need to have the dot at the end of the name. And now I get the warning, and okay, cool. So now everything's updated. I can clean out the garbage here. Zero one. Bear with me here, folks. 1004 doesn't need to be in there. So, okay. So I think we've got that under control, and then as I said here in my animation settings, I actually want to change this to 0 through 3, not 0 through 4. Not that Krita remembers that, because it doesn't, but okay, so now if we go back to Tahoma and reload the scene 778, now we've got the correct hair. Okay, and now we can go ahead and hit Control Shift R, and we will get this all rendered out correctly. For now, we'll just, and Tahoma blew up. Yeah. Tahoma blew up. Tahoma, you're being stupid. I shall not rant. I will just say it's really, really easy to make Tahoma blow up, and we'll leave it at that. Let's see if it blows up twice. I didn't think so. Usually that's the good thing about Tahoma is, and OpenTunes, is normally if it acts stupid, just just closing it and reopening it basically, I think there's a lot of memory leaks is pretty much the long and the short of it. So now if we go to our, what do we want to go to? The intro and titles. I guess we're on that shot. So okay, so now for whatever reason, Tahoma rendered it without. Okay. Well, guess we'll just work with it. Okay, so it appears to me right here we have a bit of a glitch where this was using this image, but the eyebrows, we've definitely introduced a problem, so we're going to have to fix it. Most unfortunate indeed. Well, let's just go through here and figure it out. Why is this layer in here is the question. Not quite sure. I think for my purposes, I think we can take that layer out. And then his face disappears. Okay. So there's just no, you know, this is like software 101. I mean, we've got to go and figure out what the bug is and what's causing it. Okay, so it appears that 175, oh, I know what happened. Well, no. The change to his mouth was changed on another level. So what we need to do is just extend this down to the bottom, I think. Let's find out. I think I've got this right. So I'm going to go boop like that. And oh, I see what happened. Okay, so this is the wrong drawing now. Okay, so no big deal. Let's go to here, and then this is supposed to switch right here to, which one is it? It's actually this one. That's what's supposed to be there. There we go. There we go. Alright. And now we've got this going to 229, and these are all coming up short. So let's do this. We will save all and hit Control R, and hopefully everything's going to come back to normal, okay? Any questions, class? Any questions about what's going on here? It might be a little confusing. Hopefully not too bad. So let's go to this, and it looks like everything looks good. Now, again, as I explained before, this entire edit becomes a clip in this video. So this video Yep, there it is. You can see everything propagated downstream quite nicely. So we've got the bigger smile now, and we've got the hair fixed. That's one thing I really like about Vegas is this clip is not actually a video clip. It's actually another Vegas timeline. It's one of the best things about Vegas. It comes with its own caveat, though. The caveat is if you nest 2 levels deep, and the nested scenes have audio, it tends to introduce problems that I won't belabor what those problems are like. But basically the rule with Vegas is you can get away with nesting 1 level deep all day long. So when I do a whole movie, like I got a 90-minute movie, every single scene on the timeline is in fact a separate edit usually. So I do all my editing and make a scene just like I do with a cartoon. I render out an image sequence, and the image sequence is what comes into Vegas. With a movie, it's an edited shot that comes into Vegas. And if you want to nest 2 levels deep, you're asking for trouble. That's been my experience. Okay, so, all right. With that, we're dealing with the intro video, but should we be, or should we be dealing with the pitch video? Not quite sure. This is all good now. This is fine. So we'll close Tahoma. We might as well, because Tahoma always benefits from opening and closing. So from that standpoint, we are good to just close it up. So now what I'm doing is, again, I'm focusing on, let's not, the temptation for me is to be in a hurry. I've talked about doing this crowdfunding stuff, and so now that I've got some of these assets created, I want to get them out there. No, wait, stop, hold the phone, slow down. Let's make sure everything in the video is looking right. The timeline of what I'm doing matters really to no one except me. No one else cares. No one else even knows, other than my YouTubers. Other than you guys, no one even knows I'm doing this, right? So, no big deal. Question. Can we improve this shot here? I think so. Now this is, it's got parallax, so the likelihood is very strong that this is Blender. So I think this is the pitch video. I say what we do is we edit this in Vegas and basically stay focused not on the pitch video but on the introduction that's nested in the pitch video. Hope that makes sense. So that I can go back shot by shot and just see where there might be some problems. The thing about it is that as we, let's say that a week from now we were fully crowdfunded, okay? The question then becomes, okay, now the clock has started ticking. And essentially you've got what amounts to a 6-month clock to get 2 episodes done. What would I do first? The first thing I would do is actually what I'm doing today. I'd still be going through episode 1 and finding things that need improvement and going back and fixing and just making sure everything's up to quality, right? That's very, very important. So this is going to be a Blender shot. It is shot, it's called temp. It's called temp. That's a little problematic. So on my other screen, I'll take the calculated risk of, Darren's going, don't do it, Dave, don't do it. I'm going to jump back to what I want to do is look over here. This scene 000, the folder is a bit of a mess because there's some legacy content that's no longer in the show. But what I'm looking for is that first shot of Newsy. These are all shots that aren't even in the show anymore. It's amazing how much changes. So I'm just going through and I'm just trying to find the shot. Okay, here it is. Here's the shot. And it is in the render folder. What we want to do is let's open up shot 11 and see what its constituent parts are. Because I think that the stuff I want to fix is actually grease pencil. I don't know that for sure, but I think. So probably scenes 11 does not have a Blender file. Okay, so that's a little concerning. So this is a good example of where we've got a bit of a mess. And we don't really have an 11, is it? Yeah, so again, I mean, we're only 2 shots into this and I'm already finding things that are like, whoa, a bit concerning. What would you do if you actually had to go back and fix that, but you can't find your assets? That's not acceptable. So what do we have here? Did I do this in, what program did I freaking do this in is the question. So over here I've got to look in, this is going back a long ways. So for those of you who find this kind of stuff boring, good. You should watch it anyway, because this, once you go beyond a toy project that, 7 seconds of animation or something, once you go into something a little more complex, you bump into this stuff all the time. It's here it is. The Blender file is in the render folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it into folder 011, which is where it belongs. And now, okay, so we found it. So it is in 11 now, where it belongs. Let's open it up and see what we have. Okay, not unexpected, not unexpected. Blender is really, really, really confused. I want to make sure that what we're seeing is not, doesn't have anything to do with the, you know, the render mode. Okay, and the render mode says nothing's going to work. Okay, so you might be a little freaked out right now. I'm not freaked out, so stay calm, everyone. Stay calm. I'm going to turn off only render so that I can kind of see what I'm working with here. And then what we need to do is look at these one by one and kind of figure out what's wrong with the paths. It's essentially the paths to the image sequences that's the problem. Okay, so this is layer0.ping, and it says its location is in data. Okay, so that would be, okay, I see what the problem is. Okay. Okay. Here's what's going on. We have relative paths. I'm going to close Blender. Here's why. Do you really want to quit? Okay, here's what's going on. It appears to me that the image sequences for this shot are all relative to the blend file, which was in the data folder. Okay, so now if I open Blender, it's going to find these images in the same folder. Okay, so there's two ways we can fix it, and I'm going to fix it the way that's most conforming to the way I want this to look going forward. Probably the best solution would be to change the paths one by one. Okay, I wasn't initially going to do that, but that's probably the best solution. In all likelihood, the render location is going to be wrong as well, because we used to have to go up one level from the data folder to get to the render folder. Okay, so this is pretty mundane work, no doubt about it. So what we're going to do is I will go ahead and I will try it with one image sequence first and see if that solves the problem, and if it does, I know it's going to work for all of them. Okay, so what we have is data layer 5, and probably the thing to do would be just rebrowse to it. So let's just do it this way. Okay, so there's layer 5. The good news, by the way, good news, everyone. Let's look at this, and you can see that the pattern is data // data / layer 5. Here it's / ... because that's going up one level. So what does that mean? For those of you that aren't into Unix style path processing, what we're going to do is we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and magically it reappears. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here, it's really hard to see. I need to actually do what I did in Blender 2.8 is I actually changed the whole interface so that all the fonts and everything in the whole interface are just a little bit bigger, and it would definitely help in Blender 2.79 to do the same thing. But I shan't do it at this exact moment. What I'm going to do is just go through these one by one, grab these guys, and just fix them by brute force. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I have to kind of go back behind to grab this one. And if you guys are mystified by what I'm doing here, if you don't understand Unix style paths, then feel free to ask, but it doesn't appear that anyone much cares. So 1, 2, 3. And we're almost there. We're almost there. Everything's working. Okay, so I was going to say, good news, everyone. Well, the good news is that these are all pings. None of it's grease pencil, so I can just go in and paint over the pings and everything's going to work. Okay, so now if I hit F12, I'll bet you it's going to look about right. And indeed it does. So that's good news. And so first thing we're going to do is save our work, but then we also need to change our output path, I would expect. So let's just go to... So the file name is temp, TMP, which is a little stupid, but that I don't mind. I don't care what the file name is. Looks like we're correct, actually. Let me go ahead and... okay, so now what we need to do, again, over here, so, you know, we're looking, once again, at the way data propagates downstream, just like in a software project. So what we have is we have these image sequences, and what I wanted to modify, essentially, was this one. This one, I think I was pretty sloppy on the... okay, I mean, it's obvious that I was pretty sloppy. And so let's go ahead and fix that. So what we'll do is we'll open up Krita. You know, we could do it in the UV editor in Blender, but I don't know. Let's face it, Krita's a lot better paint program, so. Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. All right, so step one. I'm actually going to create an extra layer, solo it, hit the go to red, and hit the fill tool and just fill that in with red. And the reason I'm doing that is so that it's really easy to see what I'm working with here. Okay? And now we're going to go in and start fixing. And my option, my choice, is going to be to turn on the stabilizer and just kind of carefully paint around this. You guys are like, yeah, Dave, that's really, really sloppy. What the heck were you thinking that day? And my answer is, sir, I have no excuse. I have no excuse. But quality is job one. So, you know, the simplistic style of it, that's not a problem. The cartooniness of it, that's not a problem. But the sloppiness of it, that's a problem. Okay. A little sneaking through. Very good. Yeah, that looks pretty clean. You know, again, it's like the debatable thing is, do you make the do you turn these into gradients instead of flat colors, for example? It's just a judgment. I mean, I don't think that really matters. Okay, so here, boop. I'll just paint it in. Just paint it in. Boom, ba-doo, boom, boop, ba-doo, boop, 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 boop. We'll have a gay old time. In recent years, they've tried to falsely assert that the words to the Flintstones theme say "we'll have a great old time," when in fact they don't. They say "we'll have a gay old time," because back then gay didn't mean what it means today. I'm going to let a little bit of that white bleed over. Okay, and then I'm just going to try to, actually I'm going to make my brush a little bigger so I can get a pretty clean edge here. Okay. For those who are concerned about the phallic symbol aspect of these types of structures. I don't know, but I think that actually was a thing back in the ancient world. Some people think so. People who are into like conspiracy theories about the Masons and stuff think that the Washington Monument is a phallic symbol. It may be. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. Alright, so file, save. Am I going to save this as a Krita file? It can't exactly hurt. So, there it is. Alright, so here's Blender. I already saved my work. I could save it again just to be safe. It's not going to save the images. So now I'm going to open this one again. Boop. And now we can see we've got these gorgeous building tops. Everything's looking good. And we just hit F12 and let the whole darn thing re-render. And we did it. Okay, so Yule Adams not sharing their... Oh, thank you. Thank you. I did it again. I did it again. I am going to... I am... Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we see we've learned. We have learned, and I deeply apologize. I deeply apologize that I did it again. So Darren, I have to apologize most profusely to you because I said, what, 20 minutes ago or whatever, that I was not going to switch screens, and I allowed myself to do it one time, and look what happened. Look what happened. Unforgivable. And so there will be no more screen switching. In fact, I'm going to go up to OBS right now and switch it so that both of my studio screens are showing the same screen, so that I'm not even tempted to switch screens. If it's really important for you to see something, I'll drag it down into this screen. Fair enough? Okay. So this is going to actually take a bit of a while to render. It looks to me like this is, you know, it's fully 24 frames a second, and it's going to render for a while. So what do we do? I don't want to jump to Vegas over here. I don't actually, well, I just did, but I don't want to jump over there. Usually you don't get a conflict between what Vegas is showing on the screen and the fact that another program is trying to resave those same images in the background, especially with Blender. It doesn't tend to cause a problem, but sometimes it does. So Yule Adamus says, it's all good. Your comments are funny. I'm glad my comments are funny. That's my saving grace here, is when I suck too bad as an animator, at least my comments are funny. Thank goodness there's something about something I'm doing that's actually worth watching or listening to. I've actually been kind of shocked too by the fact that if you look at people's interaction, right, when I'm live streaming, just without getting into all the details of why, I've kind of figured out that there's a fair number of people that actually listen to my live streams like a podcast. They're not actually even watching the screen. You know, like I said, I just kind of figured that out by kind of connecting some dots.
Was Melchizedek.
Okay, so now we're, like I said, we're just going to go through here shot by shot and see if there's anything egregious that we really want to deal with. It's really difficult because, you know, it's really a question of how creative you want to get. I mean, there's always stuff you can improve, so I need to be careful. Like here, for example, boom. If Mel actually had a slight blink before he goes into this expression, it would probably make the acting slightly more effective. That's not quite what I'm looking for. I'm looking for real problems, real things that are unacceptable. Here, I gotta do it. I'm gonna open up 290 and take a peek. Alright, so let's save, well, or close that. File, open. This is probably going to be, so the good news as well is that the that opening parallax shot in Blender is really fixed now. It's looking solid, and all the data is where it belongs, and everything's back to normal. So now this is a complicated shot. This is a complicated shot. So let's just look here. That's okay. This is where I'm having a bit of an issue, maybe. Okay, so what I want to do is, first of all, let's work our way out, and it looks to me like her eyes are their own layer. So this is a bit of a dangerous situation. Yeah, it's very much limited though. It's the issue that I'm looking at, that I'm concerned about, is in fact limited to these 4 frames. And it's mostly, since this is animated, it's actually this frame, and then to a lesser degree this one. Okay, so let's fix them. I'm going to fix them by painting. If I was going to be, I will say this, I haven't done this in recent weeks and months, but for these kinds of fixes, there are some really good reasons. Well, of course, it's got animation, so you have to do it in Krita, but I was going to say that there's good reasons to consider going to a program like GIMP for doing fixes like this, and the main reason being that you can't, in Krita, you can't like make a selection and cut and paste it from one place to another without it creating a new layer. Sometimes you really want to just paste into the current layer that you're working on, and it's just not something they've implemented. Well, what I'm going to do here, the eyes are in their own layer, okay? So if I solo this layer, okay, that's interesting. So you can see that actually it's a whole section of her face, so I need to be a little bit careful here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is change this. Okay, and yeah, it looks like let me check something here. Yep, I swear there's no exaggeration here whatsoever. Couple things I'm noticing. Number one, over here I'm in the eyes layer. Over here I'm dealing with the eyes, but yet the timeline tells me that the shadow layer is selected. Okay, that's one of those things I tend to rant about when it comes to software. That's utterly unacceptable. The idea that these could possibly ever be out of sync is ludicrous. So that's that. Number two, the fact that I actually opened Krita 3.1.4, opened it and closed it, was all it took to destroy many of my settings in Krita. And right now we're seeing it again, because now the selection tool, when you make a selection, it automatically goes into additive mode, which tells me that probably the freehand or the free transform tool isn't going to work. And it's not. Yeah. So basically, Krita has utterly destroyed my settings, just because I was stupid enough to run Krita 3.1.4 for. I was just checking something. I won't explain what exactly I was doing, but. And here what we see is that we had a selection. Okay, yeah, this is almost comedically bad. So we have a selection, and then we hit the free transform tool, and it is not, it appears that it's not free transforming the selection. Nope, it's determined to free transform the whole layer. So this is very, 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 very bad. Very, very bad. Krita has badly upended my entire workflow in a pretty major way, because hitting the selection tool followed by the freehand path tool, or I'm sorry, the free transform tool, is something I do constantly. So what we're going to do is we're going to, yes, UL Adamus. Yes. You can merge them back. The ability to merge them back and whatnot is quite good, and generally the idea that it cuts and pastes and creates a new layer, in many ways, especially working with animation, is a good thing. It's just that it'd be nice to have the option. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to buckle here a bit and open up Krita 3.1.4. And what shot were we just working on? I'm so sorry, I just forgot what shot I was working on. I'm so silly. Okay. Looks like it is 290. So, boy, that's fortunately, file formats in Krita for the most part have proven to be backward compatible. And to this day, there are still some more the way we expect. So I'm hitting the S key, selecting this, and then I hit the A key and it's doing exactly what I want. This is the way it's supposed to behave. Why just running Krita for Earth, I'm sorry, just running this destroys the settings in 4 is, when I rant about that, it's because, well, let's face it, hard drive space is cheap, and to keep the configuration for Krita at the very least in its own unique folder, but more importantly, for me, in the local folder with Krita itself would make the most sense. But I can totally see, especially from a Linux standpoint, if you get used to having a home folder. I'm not on Linux here, I'm using Windows, but if you're used to Linux, you see the benefit of a home folder where all your settings are. Here's the bottom line. What Krita does reveals this assumption on the part of the developers, and the assumption is that nobody would ever be running 2 different versions of Krita on the same machine. That would never happen. Well, the problem is it probably happens all the time, you know, because if you're using a version you're comfortable with, are you necessarily feeling secure when you test the new version? And what if I told you that just testing the new version, which may have a bunch of new bugs that you didn't know were there or that weren't there in the old version, just testing it will completely break your main version that you've been able to trust? You would say, oh my gosh, that's insane. That's ridiculous. Of course no one would ever do that. But actually that's exactly what happens. So, you have been duly warned, my friends. You have been duly warned. Okay. Duly warned. People, hitting the B key. Probably need to go to a color. Yeah, it's pretty charcoal, isn't it? It's pretty charcoal. And we're just going to touch this up. Well, again, when I rant about software, it's usually because I'm bumping into something that, to me, seems either, on the one hand seems a little ridiculous, but on the other hand, would seem to reveal that the developers themselves aren't using the software, because if they were, they would bump into these problems and be well aware of them. And it could be that they are, and they're just on a really long list of bug fixes that haven't been gotten to yet. It's very possible. All right, if we look at this, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-A and undo the selection. I think I'm going to hit Alt-Q, make sure let me see, Q, tool options, yep, stabilizer, and Alt-Q. Yeah, gosh, Krita 3.1.4, it's, anybody who's like a regular Krita user would be like freaking out right now and going, what the heck are you doing way back in version 3.1.4? Well, it's kind of like using the old OpenTunes portable that Jeremy Bullock created before he forked it and turned it into Tahoma. OpenTunes portable, Jeremy's build was my go-to version of OpenTunes for about a year. It was the most stable version. Don't know why, but it sure was. And you like having sometimes a fallback to the software that you know works, just in case the new versions kind of let you down. And then Krita just blew up. Okay, so this is what we Yeah, this is what we deal with all the time with open source software. We just do. You know, everything I just did is lost. That's really too bad. And the answer, just to be clear, is not, well, you shouldn't be messing around in Krita 3.1.4. That's not the, no. No. They're all the same. They all crash pretty much like constantly. If it was your vehicle, it would be like, you know, you just never know if the standards of car manufacturer were similar to the standards of software. And I don't actually think going to paid software, I don't think solves that problem. I mean, it might be a little better in some cases, but generally speaking, software. Standards of quality in constructing software are very bad, for the very reasons that I said when I first started talking today, which is that there is always the focus on time, and oops, this is the wrong shot. There's always the focus on time instead of quality, and I just don't want to be that guy. So meaning that, so this is 290. Let's just do it again. Meaning that, you know, the boss is eager to release something that they can say has new features. Now that's yeah, let's do the autosave and see if we get a good result. And it's got the selection. Looks like, yeah, it looks like some of my stuff did get saved. So file, we'll just save this immediately as I'm gonna be a little anal here and just double check. So 290, all right. And we'll go ahead and save it as ping, and then Krita will offer to also, okay, Krita will not offer to save it as a Krita file. So fine. Oops. Okay. That's that. Yeah, it blew it up again. Okay, so every time I regenerate the cache, it blows up. That's really, really not fun, is it, people? All right. The main reason I'm trying to make this work with 3.1.4 is that getting the selection tool and the free transform tool to operate in Krita 4 the way it operated in Krita 3 was the most difficult part of getting the hotkeys in Krita 4 to work properly, the way I was used to working. And the reason was because the Krita developers decided that if you do a selection like we have here, let's see, we're in the eyes. Okay, so if you do a selection, what the Krita developers decided was that once you've invoked the selection tool, if you hit the A key, of all the keys you might hit, if you hit the A key, you must want to add to your current selection. Okay, you know, okay. Well, I don't. So what I have to do now is I have to do some more housekeeping. I've got to rechange the outline selection tool so that it doesn't treat the A key as putting it into additive mode. I think step 1 was to choose a default. And the default that I wanted was replace. So that should take care of that. Now if I hit the A key, it's going to put it, oh, we'll just see. Yep, if you hit the A key, it's going to put it in replace mode. So what I want to do, or it's going to put it in add mode. What I want to do is replace. So in other words, if I do a selection, I want a new selection. Okay? Now if I hit the shift key, it'll add to it. That's fine. No problem. That works for me. And hitting the shift key did that without changing the default. So now what I have to do is change some settings in the hotkeys. All right. So I think it'd be add, selection mode add. So what I need to do is change this to no hotkey at all. And this is one of the things in Krita that I keep relearning how to do, and then I have to do it so rarely that I forget how to do it. They don't actually have a great way to delete a hotkey. Okay? And by the way, similarly, if changing it requires that you click OK, the problem is now I have to reopen it again. I have to keep reopening it for every hotkey. It's very it's a little bit convoluted. So now if I go into see the hotkey didn't get changed. So the question, I just had to do this the other day and now I can't remember how to do it. There's some little magic secret. Let's see. Click on the button and enter the shortcut you would like in the program. Example for Control A, hit the Control T and press A. Duh. You know what I think I did? I think I opened the config files and did it, yes, with text. Which you can do. So, I can't believe you guys are still watching. This has to be like the most boring thing in the history of the world. So, I'm going to look up freehand path tool. No, not freehand path tool. I want the transform tool. Transform tool. Okay, so here we see that the transform tool is set to A. So it's actually already correct. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that I set the hotkey for the transform tool, but Krita will not actually use the hotkey. Okay, it will not use the hotkey. It's gonna keep on going into additive mode for the selection tool, because it basically says, and this is again the problem with it from a software development standpoint. Basically what they're saying is, okay, and Tahoma has the same problem, which is we've got some default shortcuts. Okay, now we as the developers know better than you, so we're going to decide what all the shortcuts should be, what all the defaults should be. To a degree that makes sense. Okay, I can buy that to a degree. All right. So then what we have is this additional layer of logic that says, well, yeah, but you might want to create your own hotkeys. So now those lay over top of the defaults. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is, if you're going to tell me that this is your system, you're smart enough to design this system so that it's got this hierarchy of preference. Okay, fine. If you're going to purport that this is the system, then it stands to reason that the system should actually work, right? Meaning that if you set a hotkey, so the two problems we have with Krita right now are that, number one, there is not an obvious way to delete a hotkey. You can change it to something else, and I could do that. I could make Control Shift Alt A, the hotkey, just to override it and trick it. You can do that. Or, well, what is OR? What else do you do? You do what I'm going to do next, which is you go into the config files. Okay? So, unfortunately, this is what I'm going to have to do. So I'm going to do this up here on this screen, and let me see here. I'm going to run Notepad++, and that was actually the MyPaint settings. And so I'm going to jump this up here, and I'm checking to see if, okay, yeah, it was actually possible that this was something that was opened recently-ish. But because it isn't something I actually have to deal with every day, I'm going to have to plumb through and figure it out. So if I go into my Windows users, this would be analogous on Linux to going into your home folder. So Dave Weiss, I believe it's app data local Krita. Okay, nope, it's not app data local Krita. And this is the problem. There's like multiple places. Local roaming Krita. There we go. Okay, so here is where Krita users, then your username, app data, roaming, Krita. This is where Krita keeps its actual preference stuff. Again, the reason that's problematic is that if you run Krita, some other version, it will, like for example, if you completely deleted this, Krita will immediately restore it, which means it's keeping a local copy as well in its own, folders or whatever. As I recall, if you do that, it actually restores it to what it was, which means that you would think that, I have to figure out where the local copy is within the Krita folder. I have a suspicion where it is, but that actually gets restored into your preferences. Okay. The key files. I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna have to. I hate to have to do this, but I'm gonna have to just like open multiple folders and shut you guys out for a minute, and I just have to go through and remember where because it's stuff I've figured out in the past, and then everything works fine for like a year, and so you don't have to keep constantly. Okay, here we go. Important config data appears to be in users Dave Weiss app data local. So I'm going to open that in another location because the other one I looked at was app data back to the way I expected, because that file got saved on January 30th. It was not very long ago, so it's going to be the most current version of Krita and whatnot. So therefore, on the C drive, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go to users, Dave Weiss local, not local settings, that's not accessible, and there is no users local, so now I have to relook at this. App data local, sorry, my bad. What's really to me, what's so sad about this is it's not something that it's not like, why in the world is there nothing in that folder? The only way I can figure this out is I'm going to have to do a search for a file called Krita shortcut src. And I'm going to just search my whole user folder, because I know it's here somewhere. Very, very strange. It's almost like Krita is in fact using config data that's local to the Krita installation, which is exactly what I would want. It's what I would by far prefer. But things seem to be a little different now. It's too bad. Okay, according to this, there it is. Let's open the file location. Unbelievable. Unbelievable and unacceptable. Wow. Okay, you guys aren't going to believe this. Oh my gosh, this is it's just so wrong. Okay, what's going on is that in other words, the most important data as far as your Krita installation, by far the most important thing to having your system not get screwed up is these 3 configuration files. One of them being Krita shortcut SRC. And then there's Krita RC. What Krita is doing is it's saving those files in app data local. It's not saving them in app data local Krita. It's not saving them in its own folder. It's saving them one level up so that it's intermixed with all your other folders and stuff, you know, that's related to all the other programs on your system. That is utterly unacceptable, but it's what Krita does. So there you go. I mean, for me, I'm like, is one power configuration data willy-nilly wherever we feel like it, and not only that, but change it from release to release. And worse, have different versions of the software overwriting it. If you had a simple mechanism to back it up, which I've done manually, as you saw, I've saved those files. I figured out where they were and saved them, so that if I ever had to restore them, which I do today, that would work. So it's just so amazingly inappropriate to be doing that. So I'm going to take the Krita shortcut SRC file, and I'm simply copying it and pasting it into C drive users Dave Weiss app data local. Not pasting it into the Krita folder. Pasting it right into where it never should have been in the first place, but I have no idea of any way to trick Krita into not looking for it there. Now, closing Krita probably did not destroy my settings just by closing, which of course would be additionally unacceptable, because what that does is that's enforcing opacity in your development process. What's wrong with opaque software? The idea of opaque software is the software does not give you the ability to grok out how it stores its own data. In other words, it's basically saying you're too stupid to have an even opinion about how your system's set up. You're too dumb. And so if you're going to change any of your settings, what you need to do is you need to do it through the Krita software. You can't just open a text file and change the setting and have it work, which is what I just did. I just replaced the Krita shortcut file with the one I know from the past worked. I just find that patently offensive, because what it assumes is that the developers actually are going to implement this opaque interface in bug-free fashion. And 99 times out of 100, maybe 9 out of 10, the cure for that hubris is to simply have configuration files that are A, in a known location, and are simple text files. Now, Krita gets that right. They are in a known location, although it's really hard to find out what that location is. But once you figure it out, they are simple text files. I can show you that, actually, if we go here. And I take the Krita shortcut SRC file. You can see that what I think what I want to look for here is, well, I mean, there aren't that many of them. Yeah, see, what I did was I actually did just what I said. I changed the selection mode add to Control-Alt-Shift-A, the very thing I said. I did that 2 months ago. And the reason I did it is because probably I just deleted the hotkey and it didn't work. The default of A probably still worked, even though you've removed the hotkey, which means that this file that gives you all the hotkeys is in fact only a layer over top of the defaults. And if this file wasn't, in other words, if this is crazy to say, but what it implies, and again, this is true with Tahoma as well, what it implies is that if you have a preference that isn't in addition to the defaults but actually overrides the defaults, it won't work. The defaults will still take precedence, which is of course completely ludicrous. There is no scenario where that would be okay. But let's see what happens now. I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-A. That should deselect, and it did. Now I'm going to hit the S key, and that should select, and it did. And now I'm going to hit the A key, and it goes to the transform tool. So by overriding it with my own preferences, everything worked. But let's take it a step further. As long as we're here and we're doing it, let's find out if I'm right or wrong about this. Okay. The default for this is the A key. So I'm going to just remove it completely. The reason I suspect that now what I just showed you will not work is this. If it was going to work, what would have to happen is Krita would have to say to itself, because remember, this is not a long list. So clearly these are only the hotkeys that I changed at some point. Okay? This isn't the list of every possible hotkey. So clearly this is only an adjunct to the defaults, right? But what you would hope would happen is if you have an indication like select tool mode add equals with nothing behind it, you know, like a hotkey, then Krita would go, oh, you must want it to be none. Now, as you can see here, you've got a bunch of entries where the actual value is none. So I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to change it to none. Okay? If that's correct, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and recopy this file from my system files back to my backup. You know, because we like to have things work. It's such a mess. But to be fair to the developers, it is also true that once you figure out its idiosyncrasies, as you can see here, it is absolutely possible to game it and make it work. So you can't really complain too much. It's less of a well, it's a little more of a, let's just say, to quote Jimmy Webb in his book Toonsmith, it's a little more of a misdemeanor than a felony. Okay, let's see if it worked. Okay, it is selecting differently, and that doesn't work, sure enough. So what do we see here? Even assigning none to this tool, specifically assigning none, does not work. In fact, now what we're going to see is going to happen is probably A key. Okay. Not sure what's going on here. I'm in the eyes layer. This is very strange. Very strange. I've got the eye layer selected. I hit the S key. I make a selection. I hit the A. Now it wants to work. Okay. All right. I'm not going to fight it. That's fine. If it works, it works. We'll go with it. We will go with it. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just change this to liquefy. Just make a little change. Little change like that. Okay, so now my other question about this was, yeah, I would say, gosh, what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer here. This kind of gets to what UL was asking about. If we add a layer here, what I'm doing is I'm deliberately adding a layer that I intend to bake down into the eyes layer. So it's going to become part of the eyes layer. So the first step I normally would take is I would go to the first frame and hit insert so that it inserts a blank keyframe. So then what I'm trying to do here, and actually I'm gonna take it even a step further. Let me check one thing. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do it the way I described earlier with cut and paste. Here's why. The eyebrows are part of the eyes layer. Okay, so here's what I'm wanting to do. Here the eyebrows look correct, and then for whatever reason, because I was being sloppy at the time, once I get to this frame, you see the eyebrows look different. See how they shrunk? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get the ones that look good and replace them over top of the ones that look bad. So here's the good news. If I take this, the entire scene, and it also adds another keyframe here so that it gets overridden by a blank keyframe, which means it's only active on the frame in which I grabbed it. So that means if I take this key right here and hit Control X, then what happens is now this piece that I stole from this layer now plays over the entire sequence. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple little amendments to it, and then when we get to here, this is where we'll insert a blank keyframe so that it's no longer active over top of the eyes. And then right here, as you guys can see, boom, we need to make a little cleanup correction here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit Control-Shift-A so nothing's selected, and then I'm just going to hit the G key, which is the freehand select or the freehand path tool. Hit the E key so it's in erase mode, and I'm just going to erase this little section right here, and maybe that little section as well. Okay, so now it's doing what I wanted it to do, and if I grab this layer and hit Control-E, which is my hotkey to merge down, I'll show it this way. It's going to merge it with the layer below. Boom. Okay, so now, and I should save my work. Always save your work frequently. Between any major operation, you don't want to lose. Save your work. Okay, so now what has happened is you can see that the correct eyebrows are now overlaying the whole section of the shot where that was important. Okay? So I'm liking what I see. When we're in this really, let me hit N here. Okay, another thing I'm going to do right now, because it's just what I'm doing, I'm actually going to rescale this to broadcast HD. It's really what the output format of the show is, and it does result in better performance across the board because it's about a third less data and essentially no cost in terms of what the viewer's ultimately going to see. So I'm going to scale an image to a new size, and it's going to be 1280 by 720. And then I'm going to sit and wait because Crete is going to have to calculate the whole shoot match. You can see all the flashing and banging around over here going on while it's calculating that rescale. Now that is a fairly robust operation. It tends to not cause crashes, for example. So I think we're in good shape here. Okay, so now here's an interesting thing. Here's a very interesting thing. It's funny because I just hit the hotkey for Tahoma for rewind and play, which is K and L. Whereas in Krita, it's always been W for rewind and spacebar for playback. Actually, when I archived my shortcuts in January, I was using the Tahoma shortcuts. Most recently, I haven't. I've gone back to W and spacebar. And I did that because I was jumping between the two programs so often that I wanted to remember. I didn't want to have to remember two sets of hotkeys, right? So I just changed them in Krita. So it looks like the hoops I just jumped through actually caused the Krita hotkeys to be back to the Tahoma playback mode. So that's fine. No big deal. Okay, so in order to get this shot into shape, what I want to do is just look really, really closely at her eyes. Okay? As you can see, her eyes are on their own layer. And again, I'm going to just keep saving really frequently. Let's grab our pencil, brush, and I'm just not happy. She looks cross-eyed to me. Okay, actually, I probably should sample that color. So right now I've still got the freehand path tool selected. So that probably is better. I just want her to look kind of bored, kind of bummed, kind of bored, kind of bummed. Okay. Not bad. What I'm seeing here a little bit is, this is what happens when you start trying to fix things. You just, that did not work. That might have worked. I'm hitting the N key to resize. Yeah, that looks like it did work. Okay. Question. Do we want to give her, put it this way, if I am going to make much of a modification to the overall look of her eyes, I should probably do it on another layer so that I can do it one time and it's going to play over top of all of the frames going forward, right? Otherwise, I would have to make the same change in multiple layers, and basically the reality is you're not going to do that successfully. You're never going to make the same change twice and have it be exactly the same. Looks like this is the only frame though that has these particular eyes in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give her a little bit more, just go a little bit more femininity, if you will. Just work a little bit more eyelash into the drawing. So let's go back here. Not bad, not bad. I'm going to sample the skin color and just trim that in. So this is a really good example of where there's, you know, you're getting into some pretty good nuance as far as what it takes to whip the shot into shape, but by gum, it's worth it, I say. Okay, so now Krita just did a little freeze thing. I've seen it doing this lately. I'm not sure what the cause is, but typically if I just click away to some other program and then back to Krita, it tends to reset. So, and then whenever that happens, I just hit save, just to be safe. Okay, so now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to basically chisel back into this. I really want her to have sort of that deadpan look. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Save that. The only other thing I would maybe... Oh, it's doing it again. Really, Krita? Jeez. It never ceases to amaze how easy it is to break software. I mean, to give them a situation which they can't handle. And it's always in simple stuff. You know, it could be... I suspect that the... hello? I suspect that the integration with the GPU may have a pretty big role to play in affecting stability. And there would always seem to be a trade-off between performance gains and stability. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast. Who was that? Wasn't that Iron Maiden? Seems like Iron Maiden had an album called The Nature of the Beast or something of that nature. Get it? Of that nature. Okay. Checking the chat. Maybe an eyebrow lift once that eye sets on the bird. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Okay. So you're saying there. Yeah, I'll try it. It's worth a try for sure. I love it when people come in and have a creative idea that I didn't necessarily think of. I think that's super cool. So here, this is going to require a bit of Tianara surgery. But she's worth it because she's so beautiful. I love Tianara. She's one of my favorite characters. I mean, frankly, in this episode, she really doesn't have that big of a role. I mean, medium size. But boy, oh boy, over time, she's going to become more important. Okay, so I'm going to hit the 5 key to reset. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to do here. Okay, this is another one of Krita's idiosyncrasies. As you can see here, you see how this is all gray, and then there's a blank area? So it's like wherever you've been drawing is breaking the cache. So the cache is the place in memory where all the animated frames are stored so that when they play back really, really fast. Yeah, on the side she's looking. I know what you mean, UL, so I like your idea. I'm going to try that here in a second. So unfortunately, what that means is that the set of frames that are by far the most important ones to have in the cache, because they're the ones you're currently working on and changing and want to see how it looks when it plays back, those frames are by definition the frames that are actually least likely to be in the cache, because even though the preferences give you the option to fill the animation cache in the background, as far as I've been able to tell for the last couple of years, it doesn't actually do it. It just doesn't. So what you have to do is hit the play button and play it back for a second so that it's in the cache. Otherwise, you'll sit here and drag back and forth, and you won't see your changes. Just hearing myself say that is like, really? That's like possible? Yeah, that's how it works. Okay, so what Ewell is suggesting, I think, would be something like this. We're going to take this, actually, yeah, but I'm going to fix it here with my pencil. B key for brush. And right now I've got the wrong color. Sorry about that. I guess the snarky look is probably wrong. We don't want snarky, we just want curious, right? So let me just erase these. Okay, we've got I need to solo the layer. And again, my hotkey is broken. Boy, that's annoying. Settings. Configure Krita that how easy it is for everything to get broken. It's probably the single thing about Krita that I most dislike is configuration related stuff. Just because it is so easy to break. So what I'm going to do is I soloed the layer so that the colors I am sampling are not being affected by the shadows. Otherwise, I would sample the color and it would actually sample the wrong color. So, kind of an important little detail. Alright, so I unsolo it, and hey dirt. And now I'm going to hit the B key and go like that, and not sure I'm buying that. And that might not be because it's not the right idea, but it might be because I'm sucking at doing it, which is a very real possibility. Let's see what that feels like. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to save my work, and then what I'm going to do is move this back to here. I'm just going to overwrite it and see if it feels right. My sense right now is it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and given a choice, yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm going with you all's idea. I don't think it's not a big win, but it's a win. It's a little bit better. Why not? Okay, so the only other thing I would like to do is I want to give her some specular on the eyes here. I want to make her eyes pop a little bit, so I'm just going to go straight to white and my bold brush here and go like that. It's one of the things that really makes a big difference, really helps a ton. So let's save that. So good call, UL. I like it. Good call. Well done. Okay, and the hotkeys mostly do seem to be working now. I'm going to have to switch the... I do like that. Now that I see it again, I like it. Okay, so here, I wonder if the eyes are still... No, they're not. So this is just Tia. Yes. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to use the eyes layer to make this pose a little bit better, since we're not using these anyway. So we're going to go here, and actually we're going to draw into this. So on the eyes layer, and our cost of failure is quite low because we can always just delete the keyframe if it doesn't quite work, but I'm pretty sure this is going to look pretty good. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to kind of do the anime thing here and allow the lashes to actually extend over, which is a little ridiculous, of course, in real life. Just want to thicken a little bit here. Just make her a little bit prettier. Okay, and then I'm going to again add specular. And now I'm going to test something. As you can see, what I just did is not in the cache. I was a couple weeks ago I noticed that if you actually drag within the specific layer, it tends to fill the cache up at that point. So what I would do is click here and just drag like that. And yeah, see, that's interesting. So it's showing me my changes. It doesn't show the cache being filled, but it does show me my changes. So that's good. So you just want to drag and drop within the layer you're working on. Okay, so now here, this is kind of important. What in the world is the, I suspect, okay, I'm a little confused here. Okay, so when those eyes blink, where is that coming from? It's not in the eyes layer. I'll bet it's the, nope, it's not in the mouth layer either. What is this? That's the tree. Where the heck is that coming from? Group 2, wait a minute. Okay, now this is concerning as well. I'm going to hit the solo button and see what this is. Oh, that's the bird. That's the bird. The bird got baked. Okay. But I am definitely confused because she's got an eye blink in here. And it seems like it would be there, but it's not in the eyes layer. But yeah, this is a real poser, right? Okay, so we clearly have another change here. I think it might be here in the Tia layer. Yes, that's where it is. Yes, so okay. What I'm kind of curious about is why the so what I'm thinking is I want a blank keyframe here, and then I want to take this key and duplicate it here. Ta-da! That did it. Cool beans. Let's render it and cut it into the shell. We're good. File, save. Again, you will. If I assume that what I did was what you had in mind, so if it wasn't, let me know. Okay, so this is 120 frames of shot 290, and we're going to render this. Render the animation. Shot 290. I'm going to put this up on the other screen where it's a little easier to see. 290. Did I? And that needs to be in a folder called render, not a folder called data. Appreciate your comment there, UL. I don't necessarily see myself as somebody who's got a great eye for detail. In fact, I think when I really give it my attention, I can, but my normal defaults are to be a bit impatient and miss key details, if the truth be known. Okay, I'm double checking my folders here to make sure we're going to the right destination. It looks like we are. That would be 290. And interestingly, in the 290 folder, I'm also noticing that I got a bunch of videos that I shot. A long time ago. Either that or the timestamp is wrong, which is what I suspect, because I don't think I would have shot those in the year 2000. But of chirping birds, that's what it is. So now we should be able to go render and get a complaint that we're overwriting. And we are. And now we are actually making the whole shot broadcast HD, and we fixed her eyes. And so now if we go back to our, let's say our intro, we should see the correct shot. And in this case, of course, it goes by so fast that that does not... Ah, it does look like the right shot. That's it. I can see the eyebrows up, so there we go. There we go. Let's keep moving forward. Monkey. Monkey's fine. Mel. Oh, the specular. Yeah. Well, anytime you add specular in your eyes, it's going to be quite helpful. I will mention this, by the way. The shot that we just did was pretty complicated. Well, it was originally done this way in this very notebook, where I actually mapped out all of the angles, and it was really funny because just a couple days ago I was going through my old notebook and I saw this as well as two other shots that I had mapped out on paper, and I had forgotten that I had done that. And a couple things about it really struck me. One was that the drawings in the sketch, the way they came out in the final shot, were very much the same. It actually turned out that the plan was extremely accurate to the way the result was. And moreover, in each of the cases where I mapped the stuff out on paper first, the shots generally turned out better. I mean, I've been in recent days, I've been spending a lot of time on paper, and sometimes I'll show you guys. This is pretty cool, actually. There's a lot of kind of personal things in here, but this is kind of funny. When I was, when I was in high school and stuff, I really was all about like Frazetta and John Buscema and stuff like that, and I think I mentioned either yesterday or the day before that I used to really suck at drawing women, but I just a couple days ago drew this in my notebook, and I was like, this is it's like a sword, a sword babe, and then this other chick who's got, breaking away from chains kind of thing, and it's kind of soft porn kind of thing for sure, but the funny thing is that see the girl at the top, not her, that one, the way see how she's sitting in a very strange way? That's how my lovely, beautiful, lovely wife, Valerie, sits, like all the time. And it's not because she's trying to be sexy. It's actually because she's got a chronic pain condition that requires her to sit in strange ways so she can sort of stretch out, But that doesn't mean it's not sexy, because I think it is. That's just my opinion. Okay, so let's keep going. But that's fun, man. Most of the stuff here on the crowdfund, likewise, I've actually planned out on paper. There's something about that step, and getting away from the computer too. Getting away from the computer and the annoyances of software and stuff like that, and really just focusing on the ideas, I have found is extremely beneficial. Okay, so wait, is this shot fixed? Okay, wait a second. We might have a problem here. So we've got another one. This shot is fixed. This shot is not. What is this? Is this 7? Okay, we haven't done anything with this one yet. 701D. This should be a quick fix. The fix is that maybe the top of his hair could be modified a little bit, but certainly he needs to have the little twinges of hair behind his ears. That's yeah, well, the thing UL about mapping them out on paper. Let me see if I've got the other one. What basically turned into Trigger. Okay, so they did stuff like way long time ago, a movie called Die Buster, and then more recently, well, still kind of a long time ago, would be Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia. There's a really distinctive style to those to those anime, and it comes largely, I think, from Yo-Yo Shinari's art. So I was kind of playing around with his style of drawing, which is very, very loose and flowing. You sort of find the drawing, you sort of find the character in the sketch. And I was playing around with combining that to sort of get the form blocked in with my own personal style, which is more like a painter, where you make a very firm, distinct mark that might be just pretty tiny, and then in your mind you see the drawing start to come out. You see the character, and then you go ahead and begin to build it up as you see it. And the whole idea is that, can you successfully capture on the page or on the computer what you had in your mind? Because drawing is really about seeing. If you can see and visualize accurately, and then actually get to come out what you had in your head, that's a super cool thing. So anyway, back to work here. This is 701D. Let's open up Tahoma and see what we got to work with. 701D, that's where we want to be. 701D.
Yeah, that's what you say.
No, don't be too touchy, Bender. 701D. Okay, so I'm just going to open Tahoma. Okay, Tahoma, I don't know if I'd call it a bug or a feature, but there's one thing I've noticed. I thought Tahoma was less performant than OpenTunes in this regard, which is that you go to your folder, and then basically there's no thumbnails. So it's like, how long do I have to wait for it to generate thumbnails? Well, strangely enough, it turns out if you just open a file, all of a sudden all the thumbnails show up. So that scene just got loaded. I didn't want to load that scene, but it caused the thumbnails to show up. So something to realize. So this can be saved. Let's kind of clean up after ourselves here just a bit. And then if we go to our edit, we've got, what did I say? 701B. So that's what I want. The thumbnails should help. There's 771. And it may not, it might be a Krita file, to be fair. I don't know that it's a Tahoma. 701B. I do not see it. So it's a Krita. I was wrong. So what we're going to do is we're going to go minus 701. And there it is. Boom. Bet you that's it. And I'm kind of glad it's Krita because, okay, this is not the shot I wanted. Okay, so now I'm going to check a couple things to see if I just looked at it wrong or if there's a conflict. This is D. Okay, my bad. This is D. My mistake. 701. Where is it here? I know it's here somewhere. I know it's here somewhere. We're going to get it. Going to get her going. There it is. Okay. Very, very, very good. All right. And so probably all the animation is stuck in his mouth, which is awesome because that means that we can make some mods. Yes. We can make some mods on his bod that are going to propagate through the whole shot. Okay. There are no animation keyframes on the shadow, so the first thing I'm going to do is hit the transform tool and go into liquify mode because I'm seeing an issue right here. I'd like to just stretch that shadow up a bit. Oh, come on, Krita, don't be stupid. Okay. Just little changes. As long as we're here and we see what we want to do, let's just freaking well do it. Okay? Let's just freaking well do it. Okay. So that fixes the shadow. I see another issue that I never noticed before, which is that the outlines are showing up over top of the sword, which is, of course, bizarre. Okay? So it looks to me like this what is this? This is, I think what's going on here is that, yes, okay. this could be a little problematic. Okay. This is gonna actually require a clever fix, but it's gonna be an easy fix. What's the fix? Here we go, guys. This is the kind of housekeeping I said we were gonna do today. Number one, let's call this mouth. Okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna duplicate the layer. Okay? And then we're gonna call this ink, because this is essentially the lines. We're going to put the ink in a group, and we're going to put the mouth in a group, and then we're going to save our work. Now watch what we can do. This is going to be cool. The mouth layer, actually let's do the ink layer first. In the ink layer, I'm going to add another layer above the ink layer, and I'm going to turn off this mouth layer so we don't see it. Okay? In the ink layer, I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to put it in erase mode. And then I'm going to hit the G key. It doesn't matter what color I use. Okay. Now, unfortunately, my bad. The freehand path tool was in erase mode, which meant I was taking things away instead of adding. I want to add this shape. But the layer is in erase mode, so what it's going to do is it doesn't matter what's animated. Anything that's on this track is going to be hidden by that layer right there. So now what we've done is we've just turned the ink. We'll hit Control E and actually stop. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to erase right here. We're also going to erase these lines, because those don't change throughout the shot either. So we'll get rid of those. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can see a little bit of a little nib there, but we're not going to see that. Okay, this is the actual size that the audience is going to see. I just don't really think that's an issue. Now what we can do is hit Control E and merge that group, and so now this becomes the ink layer. Now the problem with the ink layer is that you've got all of these keyframes from the mouth that have been effectively erased, so that means all of this can be deleted. Boom, gone forever. Okay? So now the ink layer is just this one layer of ink. File, save. Okay, so now let's attend to the mouth. The mouth is the exact opposite problem. What we want to do is erase everything except the face. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to draw a lasso around the face like that, and then hit Control-Shift-I, which is going to invert the selection. Now that we've inverted the selection, we can use the fill tool to fill in everything except the face, and then once again put that layer in erase mode. And now in the mouth layer we've erased everything except his face. Okay, same situation, Control E to merge the group, and now we have our mouth, our face if you will actually, all on a single layer, just like we want. So I'll change this from mouth to face. It's probably a little bit of a violation. Normally for me I'll just call it face and mouth. I mean usually the mouth is on its own layer all by itself, so in this case, boom. Okay, so now what we want to do to make our life much easier is move the ink layer down to here, and what I want to do is marry it to the color layer. I don't even know why we have the ink layer, to tell you the truth, because as you can see there are ink lines. I'm going to turn this off and see if it makes any difference. I don't think it does. I'm not even sure why this layer is there. It's probably actually a holdover from a similar type of operation I did way back when and just forgot to delete it, would be my suspicion. So we'll save our work. we'll hit playback and see if everything looks right, and if it does, we'll assume that we were safe to delete that ink layer. Everything looks fine to me. Okay, so now the question is, what do we want to fix about Mel? Because Mel, there are no keyframes. I mean, this is just one drawing. So we can really dial in his characterization any way we want, and it's going to be easy peasy. Okay, so for me, one thing I noticed with this shot was I felt like his chin was just a little bit too squared off for my taste, and possibly slightly long. Okay, that does look better, but obviously we're going to have to fix the shadows as well, so that's fine. The shadows are just going to require a little tiny squish like that. That does look more like Mel. Now, I will say this. If the shadows have nothing, in this particular case, is there any reason to keep the shadows on their own layer? I'm not feeling it. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to use the old dupe and group philosophy. Okay, so these two layers are going to go into a group, and I'm going to close the, I'll call this ink and paint backup. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to lock it. I'm just going to lock it so it's not even accessible. And then this one, I'm going to merge the group, Control E. And then all that did was it just took the shadows and baked them together with the ink and paint. Because, again, for this shot, I don't see any good reason to keep them on separate layers. Now, that may, you know, I may change my mind here shortly. We'll see. But at this point, and now I can actually solo it and see the shadows the way they're supposed to be. Obviously, that can introduce some artifacts if you didn't do your work carefully. And here we have just exactly that. So there's that. Now what I'm going to do, I guess I'm using my pencil so the density isn't quite as high as the ink brush. So that's okay. Sometimes it's fun to just take a half a second and manually fix things up a little bit. Don't be in too much of a hurry here, folks. Alright, and then his face and mouth could merit some work. So I'm going to hit Control G, and I'm going to put a fix layer over top of the mouth, or of the face. Insert a blank keyframe, and then right here, I need to switch to this brush that's not semi-transparent. I'm just going to put a fix over top of this, like so. You know, a little bit of sketchiness, you know, is no problem, but okay. And then here, okay, so the paint layer, I am going to, I thought I inserted a keyframe, but here we're going to hit Control Insert so it creates a duplicate keyframe, so I can just kind of mod my fix a little bit like that. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking for anomalies that are somehow egregious. Here I'll say Control Insert, and let's just kind of fix this up a bit. Little bit of attention to detail. I think I actually went too far. Now, as you can see, I just hit the N key, so actual size this shot is, you know, what is the audience going to see? The audience is going to see this. So, you know, clearly we have a little bit of latitude. Now, his eyes are a little bit bright, I will say that too. So, okay, so we got one little change in the eyebrows right there. So let's hit Control Insert and fix that. Perhaps could be slightly bolder. on the brows. Okay, and actually I see another fixie poo. I'm going to simply add another layer, because this fix is kind of a big deal, but it's going to go over the whole darn thing, which is I feel like I made his freaking nose too high on his head. Not quite. Okay, and maybe let's hit the G key. Not really loving that. I think that's probably what we want. Keep it simple, Sherlock. Okay, so let's hit the save button. Okay, and those fixes are going over the whole thing. So I should be able to hit Control E to merge this group, and now his face is fixed. Okay, now I was complaining that his eyes are actually too bright. The way we fix that is just go back to the same thing again. Let's put this in a group. Okay, and all I'm going to do here is put this in, let's put it in darken mode. Okay, so what I'm going to do is sample the eye color and then go just a teensy wee. Okay, that did not work. Let's go over here to the advanced color selector. Unless I'm seeing this correctly. Let's go sample. Okay, that worked. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm going slightly darker, just a little bit, down to a color closer to what we think we're going to want. And now if we just put a lasso around these guys, let me see, have I got this right? In darken mode, what should happen? Ah, it's going to affect the skin as well. That's too bad. Well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Let's go to... I was struggling with this the other day, actually, the blending modes. I want it to be darker than the eyes, but lighter than the skin. So let me turn this layer back off again and resample this color. I'm wondering if, and let's crank the opacity up. I'm wondering if it's only just slightly darker, if that makes a difference. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Obviously this approach. There's a solution, but I'm going to waste more time than you shake a stick at screwing around trying to figure out what that solution is. So, interestingly, what we're wanting to do is darken only the very, very lightest colors. Now, one of the problems here with Krita's curves tool is it uses a type of curve interpolation that sometimes you don't want. Well, tough cookies. It's what you get all the time, no matter what. You can't use straight lines. And in this case, you can see that, yeah, this is a bit of a joke. So it appears to me that the best solution is going to be to take a gray color and actually just do a fill operation on his eyes. The problem is that yeah, really got to. This is like super embarrassing. Like struggling on a live stream with freaking blending modes is like pretty bad. Pretty bad. So by the time it kicks in, so darken clearly is not it. Is not the blending mode, and we were what you did would have taken me hours if not days. Thanks. I tend to be on the fast side, but you know, for what that's worth. Okay, I know what to do. I know what to do. Let's get rid of that layer. Let's merge the group again. Let's flatten it back out. And what we'll do is we'll use the magic wand. So, well, actually, we do need another layer. Darn it! I keep forgetting that we've got 18 trillion keyframes in this layer. So what we need to do is go like that and see if is Krita gonna do it. We got the magic wand tool. Maybe we could use the similar color selection tool. We should be able to use the magic wand, but I guess similar color would be better. And we hit selection, and Krita's idea is to select nothing at all, which is really, really, really bizarre. Again, I completely attribute this to being stupid enough to ever open up Krita version 3 a few days ago, because it broke my settings, and in a big way, and this would be one of them. Okay, so let's turn the fuzziness up to the max to see what happens. Okay, it's selecting everything, so maybe that's what was going on. It's still selecting everything. Control-Shift-A, so nothing's selected. So with a fuzziness, okay, so here's what we've got here, folks. With a fuzziness of 0, which means the lowest tolerance possible. In other words, it should only select colors that are exactly and precisely the color that I clicked on. What Krita thinks is the right thing to do here. Okay, I see what's going on. Got it. My bad. This is actually my fault. I have to do the selection in this layer. That's the problem. I'm sorry, guys. I have to do the selection here. There it is. But then do the modification here. So that created the selection for me. And now what I can do is hit the fill tool. And boom, boom. It's not dark enough. By gum and by golly. That's probably too dark. Let's split the difference. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a keyframe here. Boom. Control insert. And we're just going to go through here. And here we need to insert a new keyframe. And I'm going to go through and figure out where all the keys need to be before I go any further. So here's going to be, this is going to require a key. This is the way to work, to tell you the truth, folks. Okay, meaning that breaking your work up into steps where you sort of incrementally do it is really, really good practice. Usually, you tend to make fewer mistakes. And so now what I'm going to do is on this layer, I'm going to make the selection, go to this layer, hit the fill tool, fill it up, done. Go to this frame, grab that layer. Once again, similar color selection tool. Grab that color. It looks like we're getting some anomalies here. Yep, we need to change our threshold a little bit. Not sure why it's being a little bit more picky. Let's turn it way down. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's turn it to 11, and 11's too high. So what? Let's just go with 5. Maybe 5's the answer. Nope. Very, 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 very crazy. Okay, let's go to 3. Because so 3, you can see that there's all kinds of stuff being selected up here. So for Krita, with the selection, basically if a color is 3% similar, it should be selected. So it appears to me that maybe there's some rogue pixels here in his flesh tone that are kind of sort of close to white. If there are, you can't see them, but according to Krita, having a fuzziness of only 3, and once again we go down to nothing. So if we go down to nothing, it doesn't select all the pixels. But if we go, or I should say nothing, I shouldn't say nothing, I should say 1. But if we go to 2, it thinks that all these pixels in the skin are matching pixels. So, not to be mean to Krita, but basically, how do you get to be that spectacularly stupid? I don't really know. I just don't really get that, but because that's like, you know, we're getting into the realm of, you know, spectacular in terms of how stupid the software is being. But this is what you deal with. So if Krita wasn't an awesome program that has many wonderful applications, I wouldn't use it. So now, as you can see here, there's a little keyframe. Until I need to see it. Oh my God. Until I need to see it. It's like I keep seeing it. I see this little anomaly until I need to. And then the instant I need to see it and I go to scrub over it again, it's not in the cache anymore. Wow. So how do you manage it that every single guess you make turns out to be wrong? You would think by some amazing coincidence, once in a while, you just happen to guess right. Nope. It's so sad. Oh my gosh. Enough to make you cynical. So stupid. Well, like I said, at the risk of being snarky, I always say this about the development. It's just that, you know, there is nobody that's involved in Krita development that's actually doing animation. There's not. There can't be. If there was, they would notice all of these things and go, "Oh yeah, that's kind of stupid. We need to fix that in a hurry." And it's just little things. Let me add this. This is what I would say if I could make a statement to the Krita developers. Absolutely no features are required. There are no features needed in Krita to make it an absolutely wonderful, capable, standalone application for full-blown animation. Not one feature is required. There's just a few additions that require more intelligent utilization of the tools that are already there. So, for example, one of the things Krita can't do very well at all is a camera pan. Like if you want to zoom the camera in a reliable way. But what Krita does have is the transform tool that lets you scale your layers, which scaling your layers is effectively the same as zooming the camera in, let's say. Well, why don't you do that? Well, you can. But Krita is replete with coincidences that always cause it to fumble, to use football parlance. It would be like you fumble the ball at the 1 yard line, like you're just inches from a touchdown and then you drop the ball. Okay, Krita does that in so many ways, and here's an example of it. It just so happens that the transform tool does not ever remember its last settings. Okay, so here. So if you were going to do a scale operation and you set the scale operation to 105%, let's say, and you say, well, I just want to apply that scale operation multiple times over successive frames, and it just scales it up and up and up over time, and that's like zooming in. It would be wonderful, except it just happens that the one thing Krita does with its transform tool is no matter what, it will never remember its settings. You have to make a selection, select the transform tool, and when you select the transform tool, boom, all the settings get zeroed out to the defaults. If it wasn't for that, it would just be, yeah, you've got to manually do the tweening, you got to do manual keyframes, but it literally takes 30 seconds to do. You know, it's super easy, super fast. So the mechanisms to do it are already in the software and have been for literally years, actually, ever since they added animation. UL, can I ask you a question? We have a 20-second delay here, so I won't get the answer for a bit. UL Adamus, are you an animator, and what software do you use? I mean, it's clear that you've got some ideas. So I'm just kind of curious what your workflow is. By the way, his mouth is a little bit hot too. That we can probably live with, I think. Okay. So what do we need to fix still? Well, gosh, unfortunately, folks, we're just getting started here. We must be in solo mode. We're not in solo mode. So here is the flattened layer. We fixed his chin. Okay, so what we need to do, there's no animation keys here, so this should be pretty flexible to do. What we want to do is go back to liquefy mode. And I just want to... Okay, stop. Stop. Okay, this is the kind of thing where I have to just hold everything. Stop everything. Okay. I baked the lines together with the color. The lines and the color are baked together. I've confirmed it many different ways when I solo the layer, and yet when I applied the liquefy tool to it, what moved was not the hair but actually just the lines. Okay, so this is a little bit strange. Okay, so let's okay, my bad, I'm on the wrong layer. No, I'm not. This is the face, this is the body. What the heck is this? Ah, that's the copy. I didn't make it invisible. I'm sorry, my bad. Whew. Stupid attack there, Dave. It happens. It happens. Okay, so now we can liquefy this and it'll behave properly. Okay, so what I want to do is actually squash this down a little bit. And I want to round these guys out slightly. This is way more consistent with Mel's characterization in recent days and weeks and months. So the good news is, because this isn't animated, I only have to just fix it this one time, and then that'll propagate over the whole shot. So that's good news. Alright, and then what I'm going to do in addition to that, I'm going to save my work. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go in and... I mean, I have to say, for most people, if you're going to be doing animation with open source tools, for most people, they do far better to invest time in learning Tahoma than Krita. Unless they're really, really into painting, if they're like good painters and they really want to have the advanced painting tools. But even so, you know, the my paintbrushes in Tahoma are pretty darn capable. And early on in the show, I did a lot of backgrounds directly in Tahoma with the my paint oil paintbrush. Works fine. Yeah, here's another example with Krita that's a little bit silly. Is I use the freehand path tool like all the time, so it lets me just draw a filled shape. It's quite useful. Well, you can have it draw what you actually drew. Like, let's see if we can get it to act stupid. See how it rounded the points and stuff? The reason it rounded it out is because it's essentially doing a smoothing algorithm. So it's got this curve interpolation. I always switch it to raw. Okay. Would you believe that there's nowhere, anywhere in the software, anywhere, that I've been able to find, it might exist, but I don't know what it is, where you can't tell the freehand path tool to just do raw mode. Like, so in raw mode, it draws the actual shape you drew. In curve mode, it doesn't. It smooths it for you. Okay? So far I've been keeping track, believe it or not. How many times have I ever wanted it to be in curve mode in over a year? How many times? Guess. I'll give you a hint. The answer is less than one. Not one time. Not one time has curve interpolation ever been useful that I can recall. And yet, every single time I ever invoke the tool, I have to come over here and switch it from curve to raw. Every time. Wow. Really? You know, call me cocky. Call me cocky for saying, really? You're actually that stupid? You're really that stupid? Wow. Is that actually possible? Now, do I become, you know, maybe close to that stupid once in a while? Absolutely. But I can admit it. Okay, that's a little bit of a stupid attack right here, actually. I need to take probably my brush, not my freehand pad tool. Okay, right on, people. Okay, so now let's check one more thing out here. That's saved. I want to look at, actually not show number 1, I want to look at episode number 2. The edit of episode 2, and I'm very curious how many of these shots actually happened here. Okay. Okay, really only one, but okay. I'm going to leave that one alone. This is going to get rendered. This is 701D. Control R. Sorry. Control R. When Vegas has the focus, begins Vegas creating a new audio track and starting to record audio, which is absolutely not what I intended to do. And now that I hit undo, Vegas, if you can believe this, is now giving me the old spinning icon that says Vegas is actually about to crash, if you can believe that. Yeah, I'm not joking. So yeah, now Vegas is about to crash as well. And it looks like it bounced back from the crash, but it did not bounce back from creating an audio track that I definitely did not want. So now I'm just going to delete that audio track and once again save the edit. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, we're back on solid footing here. So what did I say? This is 701D. I just failed to click on Krita before I hit Control R. My fault entirely. This was done at 24 frames a second and 220 frames. Is that? Yeah, it looks about right actually. So this is 701D. 701-D. And this is going to be also 701-D. Period. Okay. Okay, Krita is Krita is complaining that the image sequence exists. And so it appears the correction with his hair and the shadows. So it looks like everything worked. Let's go here. And then what we want to do here is actually just save our work and then pull up the I want to pull up the edit of the, I guess the intro and titles. Yeah, so that goes by awful fast, folks. That goes by awful fast. Why does he look a little cross-eyed there? I am actually going to pull this back up and double check my work here. I think I might have an issue. Yeah, he is a little he is a little cross-eyed. Okay, so once again, how do we fix that? Is it easy? No, it's not easy. What we've got to do in this case, I mean, it's kind of easy, I guess I should say. Alright, I'm going to go back to frame 1. I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. And then I'm going to, and of course, this is actually one of the reasons why I prefer Krita 3 over Krita 4. Is in Krita 3, what I just did is impossible because you can lock the dockers. Krita 4, you can't lock the dockers, and I've ranted about that before. At some point, the developers decided that the little icon to lock the dockers was somehow confusing, and so let's just take it out of the program completely. Take the capability out. Get rid of it. I do not share that opinion. I do not share that opinion. I think that was one of the silly things, the silly decisions that were made. Really, Dave? That's what you're gonna do? What I have. Boom. So right here, we'll insert a key. And then what we're gonna do is, I wanted to make these eyes just a little bit bolder anyway. And they're still, he's still cross-eyed. That's better. It's not really better from a cross-eyed standpoint, but it is better from a the size the pupils need to be standpoint. So here's what we're gonna do. First thing is, let's switch brushes. This is very, very, you know, just really, really detailed, niggly work. Mainly because of the scale. And what I mean by that is that you have to zoom in to see what you're doing, and the problem is when you're zoomed in, it's really easy to get something, to draw something that looks exactly correct, and then you zoom out and get the perspective and you realize you completely botched it. It's not even close. Happens like all the time. That's where one thing Tahoma has that's nice is actually the this little thing here. Well, we can just pop up a scene so that we can see what I'm talking about. But when you're drawing in Tahoma, if you hit the B key, you can hit this little window and it pops up the locator, which allows you to be able to see up. Not only can you see up close, you got to position it on your screen in a way that works for you, but not only can you see it up close, but if you lift up your stylus and then lift it and then put it down here, you can do the drawing in the close-up, right? I used to actually do that all the time with OpenTunes. I use the locator quite a lot when I was working on this anime project, not this show. But anyway, back to this. I wonder, let me see something here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, what if we, I'm going to try something completely different here. I have an idea. Get it? An idea. Sorry. I am very curious what that's going to look like. That's not going to work. That is not going to work. Thought it might. Thought it might. Worth a try. Sometimes going really, really fast helps. Yep, that did help. Okay. Control R, since we just rendered this same shot a short time ago, we should be okay here. How long have we been live streaming? Okay, so we're actually pushing 4 hours today. Not entirely shocking. I mean, I got a lot of little detail work here to do to sort of clean things up for the crowdfunding pitch, and so you know, it's just a lot of things to do, and I don't want to give short shrift to some of these details that could really, you know, I want to elevate the quality as much as possible, because as I said earlier, if I had a fully funded crowd pitch tomorrow, what would I do the next day? Exactly what I'm doing today. I'd be going through and just, you know, going through episodes 1 and 2 and fixing things. Trying to make it as awesome as possible. Awesome, I tell you. Alright. So I'm satisfied with this, so I am going to merge the group. I'm going to take the chance of merging the group, and I'm going to save my work. And hopefully that did the trick. Let's go back to our edit and let's find out. No, that's not what we wanted. We wanted our intro and titles. Okay. Yeah. Boom. Yep, that's better. Okay. This shot we already fixed up today. And so I think that does the job for the intro and titles. I think those were the only things I saw that were particularly egregious. So let's get rid of the intro and titles. We don't need that up on the screen. Let's go to the pitch video. That's this one. And now the pitch video is actually referencing the intro video. The edit that I was just working on is actually this right here. This is embedded. It's nested in Vegas. So if I actually right mouse click, I can edit this in Vegas, and it'll actually open up the show intro that I was just working on a moment ago. So I like the nesting feature in Vegas. A lot of programs, I mean, it's in Tahoma, it's the same as a sub X sheet or a sub scene. You know, it's the same idea that you're putting one edit inside of another. It's quite a useful concept. So, all right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the pitch video and again just try to find things that may be bothersome and maybe harming the look of the show. This is a little background on me and my filmmaking experience. And Mr. Painter did that one in 2014. That's obviously Robin Williams. Why the heck I wanted to paint Robin Williams, I have no idea. I don't know what I was thinking that day, but something caused me. I think I was just probably wanting to do some portraiture, and I just probably just Googled, like something stupid like famous people, and he happened to come up or something. I don't know. Okay. This I'm going to forgive. Okay, so well, or am I? The problem is that Mel's hair is actually incorrect in these shots. His hair, all in all, his characterization's okay, but his hair, there's supposed to be a little dibby-dabby of hair back here. So I think I'm going to take a banana break. I am getting a little hungry. I think I want a banana break. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to let my brain rest for a moment and take a banana break. And then when I come back after my brief banana break and get some more H2O, I will decide if I'm going to keep live streaming or go ahead and call it good for now and possibly come back later in the day. I will say that for the most part, yeah, I mean, actually, well, the good news is the only thing I'm seeing in the pitch video that needs fixing is his hair in these couple shots. And again, it's not essential. It's just that in the actual show, I want it to be fixed. For the purpose of a trailer or a pitch video, it's really not that important, but it's going to have to be done sometime. So once we have that, then I'll take a look at the story and characters video and start thinking about things in there that may be worth fixing as well. So that's that. I think it's time for a banana break. And Maria, by the way, just in fact, yeah, Yoel's kind of alluding to the idea that I'm maybe going to sign off here. I think I am. So sorry to sign off just when you showed up, Maria. I'm still considering you, by the way, for the role of Fala. I haven't touched or even looked at anything with voices in the last few days because I've been focused on these Indiegogo related assets, and I have put a number of my friends, that have done acting in my movies and stuff. I've basically put everybody off for while I work on getting this stuff together this week, and then I'm gonna basically next week regroup and start I'll probably do a formal casting call and chop some sides out of the script for actors to use, you know. I think I'm going to find out that it's going to turn out to be shocking how many people I know who've done a lot of acting who don't have a respectable recording setup at home. I suspect. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, actually, but I suspect that's going to turn out to be the case. But we shall see. Only time will tell. So, with that, I think I will take my banana break and then let you guys know in a couple minutes whether I'm going to continue, because I haven't decided yet. All right? Back in a flash. Yep, I decided I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. I have my banana. It's not the greatest banana ever. Yeah, it might be somewhat tacky to eat a banana publicly on YouTube, but I'm doing it. So, hey, Yvette, I hate to tell you, you showed up just in time for me to sign off, because I've been going for almost 4 hours. But so, you know, I may be back later today. I just kind of am feeling like I've gotten a lot done, a lot of little fixes here in the show, and probably time to take a break. Probably the last thing I'll do before I sign off is I'm going to look at these two shots, and I want to find out if these are... Okay, so these two shots are... These are not actually referencing the original shots. They're referencing the edit. And in fact, they're referencing, I'm pretty sure, the rendered MXF file of the edit. Yeah, it is. This is in the crowdfund folder, and it's actually edited. So the only way I can fix this and see the changes propagate would be to go into the actual scene edit, or I should say episode. So this is not what I want. There's episode 1. Looks... Yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, so... I see what's happening is it's opened on this other screen. Okay. Duh. Getting a little freaked out there. Okay. So we're doing the thing where they're running around and crossing the river, right? That's what it was. So, yep, here it is. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, we look at this. This is shot number 764. So I'll go to Tahoma first, just in case. 764, just in case I get lucky here. But it appears to me that we're at 7. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. 764 to 766. Let me open that up and see what that is. And that's a whole bunch of nothing. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is Krita. So let's close this guy and open. Gosh, I said I was going to sign off, and I am not exactly signing off. 764.ping. Okay. This is annoying. What am I missing here? Slow down. 760. Here's 762. 764. But this is 763, and this is 764 again. So 764. There's no way that's a blender. There's no way that can't be a blender. But as I've been saying, this is a day for whipping stuff into shape. So I'm gonna go to folder number 760. I have to keep checking and rechecking. Sorry. 764. Grr. 764. There you are. And there's the Krita file. Okay, it's okay. That's interesting. Well, let's find out, folks. Let's get the wonderful surprise. That's the shot we were looking for. That calls for another bite of my banana. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. There it is. It's all one shot. In the show, it's broken into 2 shots. That explains a bit. So Mel is... yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to stuff this entire rest of the banana in our mouth. Mmm. Mmm. You notice how I refer to myself in the plural? We are going to stuff the banana in our mouth. Yeah. That's because I'm royalty. Yeah. Not so much. Not so much, Dave. Okay, so what I'm going to do is hit Control G, put this guy in a group, add a layer, put the layer under this layer, and then I'm going to grab the shadow color here, hit the G key, which of course is going to be in curve mode because Creed is stupid. And I'm going to sample this, like that. This. Whoops, that's a little too big. Yeah, that's too big there, Dave. You silly goose. Okay. Now I'm going to actually add back in some of the shadow color. And there it is. Unbelievable that it would be that simple. I'm going to forgive this. Well, actually, I'm not going to forgive it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fix it up above here by just adding a tiny bit of color right there to sort of block that line. I don't care about the outline being in there. That's not that important. Okay, and let's go back down below here. Oh, I hate the curve mode. Ah! It's so stupid. In 2 years, not one time have I ever had found curve mode to be useful. It only distorts your drawing and causes Creator to actually draw something you didn't actually draw. I mean, I get the point. It's like smoothing, you know? Smoothing has its place, obviously. So this is paint layer, blah, blah, blah. And we need to expand this a bit. Expand this a bit. I said expand this a bit. How many times do I have to click to get it to expand a bit? There we go. Control Insert. And now what we're going to have to do is, yeah, I mean, this is unfortunate. This is unfortunate, but what we're going to have to do here is actually redo this fix repeatedly. And of course, it's impossible to do the same fix the same way twice, which means there's a slight chatter on his hair. And I think we can probably forgive that. This would be a copy of this, presumably. And this would be a copy of this. Okay. So we're in good shape here. Pretty much. Let's keep going in this wonderful direction that we're going. And there we go. Okay, so now here's where things change. What I'm going to do is go here in this layer and just do a basic transform that should be roughly the same as the transform of the hair layer. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay, so now we have to go back to the hair layer. G key. And it actually stayed in raw mode. Thank you, Krita. Thank you. Thank you. Bless you. Thank you for not hosing me. Alright. Okay. I am going to simply delete the back of his hair here, because my strong suspicion is it's probably not going to matter for once he's in motion. I would say this. I would say let's go ahead and give him one. Let's just, okay, we're in the wrong layer. So let's just scale this up a bit like that. We'll just scale it up a bit and rotate it. And I think it's scaled too big. Edit. And this is going to be 764. Okay. So Control R. And this is 764. 64. 764 period. We're going to render this. Looks like that's all working. What about the HD thing? That's a worthwhile thing to consider. Yeah, potassium. Hey, Ashton. Is Mel the story of the one who becomes king of Salem? Yule, that's an interesting question. In the Bible, this is not a Bible story, okay? And I only make that point because in the world of movies, I'm kind of known for movies that are sort of like faith-based films, Bible-related stuff. When I get criticism in a review, it's usually because, maybe with this one movie, there's one place in the movie where some people said a prayer, and the person complained that it was too churchy. Okay, and which I get that. Frankly, I don't blame them to a degree because for reasons of my own, I have no desire to make faith-based films anymore. No desire. I do identify as a Christian, but my entire Christian faith can be summarized thusly. I don't know what happens after I die. I believe there's a creator, and I trust my creator to do for me what I cannot do for myself. And if I claim that I can, I'm obviously a liar, and provably a liar. So my problem is, I'm a guy who's identified as a Christian who's also a rationalist. Did Jesus ever even actually exist? There is a good case to be made that he didn't. It's not a strong case, but it's a modestly strong case. The better case is to be made for the fact that the stories we've embraced as being canonical about Jesus, meaning the Bible, there's lots of good reasons to really question the veracity of the history that's there. In other words, the most reasonable view is that whatever happened to 2,000, however many years ago it was, whatever happened, the story that we tell ourselves and told ourselves about what happened probably was greatly, greatly, greatly mythologized by the time it even got written down. Because it was written down like the earliest writings were something like almost 2 generations after Jesus. So anyway, all of which is to say, because my background and my history is, to the degree that I have any street cred as a filmmaker, I'm known as a faith-based filmmaker. But I'm not making faith-based films anymore. And I don't want to. I want to make positive entertainment. I'm happy to make family-friendly entertainment, but I don't have any kind of Bible agenda on my sleeve. And in fact, I find it offensive, actually. That's the truth. Okay, so when I originally came up with the story 10 years ago, it was targeted to the faith-based marketplace. And so the short answer to your question is, yeah, actually, the young kid Melchizedek is in fact the guy who ministered to Abraham in the Bible. But that is absolutely the only connection between the biblical name Melchizedek and the story. Now, some of the history's kind of in common, like the land of Nuzi and the land of Nippur that are cited in the script. Those are actual ancient lands, that existed. But, my whole angle on the story was that I I wanted it to take place in a time not too long after the flood, which, you know, and I don't think of the flood as being a biblical thing anyway. Many, many ancient religions and traditions and mythologies talk about a great flood that destroyed a lot of the world, if not all of it, but certainly a lot of it, and killed a lot of people and everything else. So I thought the time after the flood was really an interesting time, because at that time we didn't have any religions. We didn't have a Bible. We didn't have any. There were no Muslims, no Hindus, no nothing. Some of the traditions were starting. Obviously, Tianara is coming from a more Eastern tradition, hence the dot on her forehead. But I wanted it to be just a mishmash of cultures, because kind of one of the driving values of Blended Planet is the idea that we are a blended planet. In fact, we're all genetically connected. And so one of the things that I would like to play out in the stories in these 12 episodes of this show is to deal with normal issues that people care about that tend to separate us from one another, in my opinion, for no good reason. You know, and usually the sad fact of the matter is that the Bible and religion usually does more to separate people and actually prevent us from connecting than it does to foster connection. And there's a whole discussion about that. I could preach for 2 hours about how I feel about that, and I won't bore you guys with it here. But the short answer to your question is that the character of Melchizedek was taken from the Bible, but that's where it ends. It starts and ends there. Other than that, it's just kind of a fun idea that, you know, at some point that guy must have been a young kid, you know, and what the heck was he doing? And so it's kind of like young Hercules or something, right? So anyway, so I rendered that in. So now what should have happened, and indeed it did, is as you can see, his hair is fixed. So the only problem we have is right here. How do you explain the fact that his hair is, this is matching his normal characterization, and yet his hair is sticking up over his, you know, headband or whatever it is here. So this can be saved. I guess we can close Blender. I thought I just closed this. I thought I said close, you silly goose. Alright, this is going to be 763. So I'm going to check this. Dash 763. Now it's just a ping, so that means that it's probably in the 763 folder, and indeed it is. 763. I think these shots were done before my current naming convention was fully established. So what do we got? Shadow, Monkey, Luca, Mel, and Tianara. So these guys are just this is very lucky for me. Very lucky for me in this case. It doesn't get any simpler. All I need to do is hit the G key, which of course, stupid Krita, set it to curve again, and then I guess I'll build that out just a little bit more. And technically, this is a little tricky actually, because technically it would be coming here. So let's do what I do normally with animation, is I work from the known to the unknown, right? So let's just do that. Mel's got somewhat curly hair, and it does poof out a bit. So let's poof. You know, so now the problem that you have, which is certainly meritorious of a certain amount of debate, is what about his headband? You know, this headband's supposed to come around his head. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm suspecting I can turn this black, and it's probably going to be about right. Yeah, so we're going to just do this. Just kind of get that in there. And then what I think I'll do is, let's just go into this layer, and I'm going to sample that color from Luca. It's like a really dark green. Yeah, I think that'll do the trick. I'm going to go even darker for this particular shot, but you know, the headband probably should stick in there somewhere. This is a really rare shot in the show. It's almost never happens that we're looking straight at the back of Mel's head. It just doesn't happen. And because of that, I haven't had to deal with this particular question very often. So Creda's doing its stupid thing now that it's only been doing for the most recent version where, and actually, by the way, to be fair, I don't actually think this is Creda's problem. I think it's actually got to do with the tablet driver that I had to upgrade some time ago. So, but what it does is Creda just basically kind of freezes up. All right, let's render 763. So there's 764, 763. And that complaint is exactly what we wanted to see, because that means we're overwriting the other image files. And if we go here to the edit, ta-da, Mel now has normal hair again. That's better. Wow. So, yeah, I kind of went through a phase. This was early in the development of the show, and I went through a phase where I was giving him this hair that was all clopped up on top, and, you know, just ultimately that was not the right choice. So, with that, I'm finally going to be done, and I'm going to sign off. As you guys know, there's just no end to it here at Blended Planet, so there will be more later.